Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
And now, live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville, this is your front row seat to one of the most anticipated political traditions in the Commonwealth. It's the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, presented by Kentucky's Voice.
All right, three of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Fancy Farm has a long history. It started back in the late 1800s. Political speaking got added in the 1930s, and since then, it's been the unofficial kickoff to campaign season right here in Kentucky. Now, primaries used to be in August. This event always held the first Saturday in August. However, when they got moved back to May, this still became the kickoff more so for the general election. And historically, we've seen both Democrats and Republicans, but this year it's looking just a little bit different. Whether it's because Democrats have just been losing so much ground in Kentucky, or if they just have nobody left willing to come out to the deep red Western Kentucky, there will only be right now, according to the lineup, one Democrat speaker, the Democrat running against Congressman Comer. Now, anybody who is a representative of the area, state house rep, state senator, state legislators that cover the area, but then also the constitutional officers, such as the Secretary of State, the auditor, the treasurer, the governor, always have an open invitation to come speak each and every year. But on election years, their opponents get to speak as well. But without having those Democrats, they've opened it up now to more candidates running in the Republican primary, specifically for the statewide office, our federal Senate seat, the race to replace McConnell. And I tell you what, I've seen a lot of races over the years. This one is already pretty hot and heavy, and the unique atmosphere of Fancy Farm will lend us quite some interesting times today. So you see, Fancy Farm, normally when you politically speak, you're asked to be quiet, to be respectful, and to listen. But not here, no. Instead, here we have jeering, we have cheering, and it's a completely different atmosphere. And if you've never spoken before here, it can really throw you off your game. And that is something we'll be watching for out of these Senate candidates. As Andy Barr, congressman from the 6th District, has never spoken at Fancy Farm before. Nate Morris, businessman coming also out of the central Kentucky area, has never spoke at Fancy Farm before. But Daniel Cameron has spoke at Fancy Farm 4 or 5 times as he was state attorney general. Sorry, he was state attorney general out here. And so he has a lot of experience dealing with this type of environment. And so it'll be interesting to see how that throws people off, because already last night and this morning at speeches, they were throwing jabs at one another. They were making fun of one another. Cameron calling Nate Morris a fake, a phony. Nate Morris calling Andy Barr and Cameron Mitch's boys and stooges, and we need a change from Mitch McConnell. And then this morning at the breakfast, Mitch McConnell himself showed up and weighed in on it and saying, why would you not want to be like me? I was the longest serving longest serving Senate majority leader in this country's history. Why would you not want to be like me? I support Trump even more than Rand Paul does. That's what he was saying this morning. And it looks like, based on McConnell's words, he'll probably be speaking as well today. This will be his last one as senator. So there's quite a lot for us to watch out for here today, and it promises to be very interesting. We've seen already some props here. Daniel Cameron's campaign running around, throwing out these here. We got Fake Nate. Before Fake Nate takes it away, it's a straw referencing Nate Morris is signing a pledge while he was running Rubicon, his company there that's in waste management, to get rid of plastic straws. And then also walking around with this here. Stock certificates, penny stock certificates, referencing Rubicon going bust. Nate Morris, he's got a trash truck out here referencing his trash background. And so there is quite a lot of interest already going on here. But that's here for the ground. Now back to you all in the studio with your live analysis. Thank you guys so much.
Andrew, thanks a lot. We appreciate that. Talking about props, that really does describe the environment at Fancy Farm, and it's certainly not the first time we've seen him. I was thinking back a few years ago, I think it was 2003, it was, as a matter of fact. A giant head with sunglasses was set up down there, and it was dubbed the Job Terminator. And it made its debut, and it was mocking GOP gubernatorial nominee Ernie Fletcher. I will say, though, that this doesn't always work because Ernie Fletcher went on to win the gubernatorial campaign against Ben Chandler at that time. And a lot of that was a reaction to Paul Patton and what happened, some of the scandal in his administration. Of course, then Ernie Fletcher had a challenging administration as a Republican. I think that's what we need to say about Fancy Farm is this is intended to be a bipartisan event. And it has been through the years. And what's been interesting, and this is the 145th annual Fancy Farm Picnic. Apparently, guys, even through COVID, and I was trying to confirm this, I believe, even through COVID, even through all the lockdowns and the shutdowns, we still had our political picnic here, which is very unique.
It is.
No other state in America has an event like this, like Kentucky, and we're a unique state in that. And so what it is it's 19,000 pounds of pork, I believe. Don't quote me on the actual.
Literally and figuratively.
That's right. Well, all kinds of it too, fried, boiled,
Barbecue.
And let me give folks who may not be familiar with Fancy Farm just a very brief Cliff Notes tutorial version. This is not your typical political event even. This is where the crowd will say it's very interactive. Let's put it that way. In which, in this day of time of social media, is actually made for that.
Really is.
Because when speakers are speaking, candidates or incumbents or whoever it is, the other side, the other political side, if they're Republicans, the Democrats come, and sometimes they even pay people to come, I think, and heckle the candidates. Now, the Democrats at one time dominated this event in large part because they dominated the political scene in our state. Not so much now, and it's really changed. Republicans now. Today, a majority of the speakers will be Republicans, but 145 years. Now, here's really how it was just started out as a small event where somebody, the guy who started this, asked people to come over to his house, and he was going to have a little picnic and get people to vote for his guy, his candidate. And it was so well taken care of that's where the name Fancy Farm came from. It was just because it was so well taken care of.
Didn't know that.
But where it really got its momentum was in 1931 when a young, you might have heard of this guy, A.B. Happy Chandler,
Happy Chandler,
running for lieutenant governor. Now, this is the kind of event that's made for a guy like Chandler. And Chandler is the kind of politician that was made for Fancy Farm. But he steps on the Fancy Farm stage, but it really wasn't a stage then. It was a bed of a truck parked under a big old tree. That's what they said. And the tree was so famous for hearing politicians' tall tales that it was said to have heard more lies than any other tree in Kentucky before lightning split it in 1974. That tree is no longer with us.
Poetic justice.
But here we are in 2025. Fancy Farm is still with us. Now, not everybody's a fan. Some people say they're not really into this stuff. And I know when Matt Bevin was governor, he didn't like it. He really didn't like the event, but he went when he was running for governor. And that's the thing. Candidates who want to win, candidates who want to get their name out there, which we'll hear about Nate Morris today, for example. He's doing the right thing by being at these types of events. So people are discontented about this for some reason. We have Nate Morris with us. Speaking of him, okay. Well, let's bring him in here. And first of all, let me introduce my co-hosts here, Tom Fallbush and Bob Scott. And we are the Kentucky's Voice team here. And we're welcoming Nate Morris in, who's running for United States Senate. He's down there at Fancy Farm. I hope he's already had one of the pork sandwiches down there. And I guess we'll throw it to Andrew Cooperrider down there if he's going to talk with Andrew. You've got Nate Morris there. Ask him if he's had one of those big pork sandwiches yet. I want to know if he's gonna, if that's gonna help his speech about McConnell today.
Nate, back in the studio, they want to know, have you had one of the big pork sandwiches yet?
Not yet. I'm making my way over there. And one of the things that's so great about Fancy Farm is the food. And, this is a great event, Andrew, just because of all the good that it does for St. Jerome's. This is a fundraiser
so let's see if we
for
can
kids and families. And so I'm really proud to be a part of it. But of course, the interesting part is the speeches today. So I'm excited about that.
Have you done anything to prepare for this unique environment? Have you done any speeches where your wife was yelling at you at home?
We're going to be ready. Let's just say that. And we got a lot to say. And I'm glad that Mitch McConnell decided to show up. We weren't sure if he was going to be here, but I think it's great he's here.
He chastised you this morning. How'd that feel?
Listen, I think it's a badge of honor. I mean, look, but I think one of the things that he needs to check his facts about is I don't want to be anything like Mitch McConnell, and I'm very proud of that. I mean, this is a guy that stood by all the lawfare when they were going after President Trump, did nothing. This is a guy that blamed President Trump for January 6th. This is a guy that backed up the truck for Ukraine. I'm going to be a much different senator than Mitch McConnell, and I'm very, very proud of that.
Can you give us any preview of what you're going to be saying up there? Any ideas? Give us any cues?
Well, we came in a trash truck, so you can use your imagination, but it's going to be really colorful and good.
Thank you, Nate, for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Y'all, that was Nate Morris here, giving us a few minutes of his time real quick, but back to you all.
Andrew, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
So you've been to these events, and you know that, and you don't really want to give away. And I'm not surprised he didn't tell you everything he's going to say, because you don't want to give away the barbs, and the barbs are what makes it on social media, guys. This event, when they started this event, the short barbs, the short attacks on opponents, that's what we'll see on social media later. I don't know if Andrew can still hear me or not. I can't see him in here, but anyhow. But I think we were talking before the break, or before we went to you there, about how if a candidate in Kentucky wants to get his name out there, these are the events. If he's not well known, these are more important to a challenging candidate who people don't know than those who they're already familiar with. So this is like the big bean supper. If you're a candidate, you want to hit every bean supper, every event in your town, in your district that's going on. And Nate Morris is doing the right thing. But guys, as we were saying before we went to Andrew, and I guess he's not with us now. That's fine. We'll bring him back later. But some people think this is just a bunch of political theater, that there's not a lot of substance here. People have pointed out, of course, since Republicans have become so dominant, which ironically, Mitch McConnell has been a big part of that.
That's right.
If you want to look at that, he's it's such an interesting study on how you look at him. It's really where you're coming from with him, and how you see it. But I think that makes a great discussion point, because here's a guy who, we've got Supreme Court. We've got a conservative Supreme Court, perhaps the most conservative in modern times since early days of this country, largely because of his political savvy. On the other hand, there's been things he's done. The conservatives, lots of votes he's taken, the conservatives don't like, on spending, on debt, increasing the debt limit, those types of issues. So what do you guys think? This is, he's such an interesting political character.
Going along that vein, it's interesting to point out that Daniel Cameron, one of the senatorial candidates, was very instrumental in helping vet at least one of those candidates when they were running. So it's just really strange and special times we find ourselves in, as to what's happening.
Vet who, the candidate, the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Candidate? Yeah. Well,
That's right.
Well, he was a Mitch McConnell protege.
That's right.
Which a lot of folks have been. I mean, when Mitch McConnell was elected to the Senate from Louisville, right here where we're sitting today in the studio, Democrats outnumbered Republicans almost 5-1 in this state. And so in order to win, he could not be a right-wing conservative here to win. So he had to learn how to win. At some point, though, it's changed. Now we have a much more conservative state. How much does that have to do with
what's
this?
fascinating about this fancy farm today is this fancy farm is basically a statewide town hall on the McConnell legacy. That's what this is today. This is a discussion of Mitch McConnell's legacy.
Yep.
You have folks that are going to be, of course, anti-McConnell and positioning themselves like Nate Morris against his legacy and being I'm the anti-McConnell. And then you have Cameron, who's a protege, but still needs to separate himself from McConnell on some level. And Barr, who knows how he's going to come out. But this is a town hall that really all of Kentucky needs to really see right now. If you're going to vote, if you're going to vote in this election for this primary, this is a critical moment because we really don't know who Nate Morris is.
And make no mistake, Tom, he's there. McConnell is there to defend his legacy.
That's right. Exactly. That's just so fascinating.
Okay.
He's there today.
Well, guys, this is very interesting discussion, and we're going to go back out. Andrew Cooper Ryder, who hosts the Andrew Cooper Ryder Show and is also a guest host here on Kentucky's Voice, has another guest for us. Andrew, can you hear us here in the studio? After you're done with your guest, we want to also keep you on, so stay with us for some analysis of this interview.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
Well, I'm here with Heather Lemire. She's the state director for Americans for Prosperity.
Tell her I said hello.
They're a group that deals with advocating for different legislation, both within the state and nationwide, but she's the leader of the Kentucky chapter. AFP Action, their sister group that gets involved in campaigns, so you guys know what a big deal they are, has spent millions of dollars over the past several years getting their endorsed and preferred candidates elected and trying to get ballot initiatives done. For Americans for Prosperity, Heather, what are you guys looking at? Because it's not unheard of for you to get involved in these types of races and spend millions of dollars. What are you looking for when you guys are looking at candidates that you want to support?
Yeah, so we are looking at candidates that obviously are freedom focused. We want to remove as many barriers from people's lives to allow them to achieve the American dream. And so we're talking to candidates right now and just finding out if there is a need for us to get involved. We really just want to make sure we hold on to these seats.
When you look at that, you just said you want to make sure you hold on to the seat. So are you indicating that you believe there are candidates that could lose the Senate seat despite Kentucky's very conservative Republican history when it comes to at least our federal Senate?
I mean, I think we're just keeping an eye on it right now. Honestly, we don't think there's any viable Democrat candidates. They don't really have a strong bench. And so, I mean, right now, we don't really feel like there's any strong threats from the Democrat side.
Absolutely. And Americans for Prosperity, you all were involved in kind of pushing forward that one big, beautiful bill federally as well. When you're talking to candidates, is it a must that they have to support that? They support Trump, or are you looking for different kinds of policies?
I mean, really, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was our biggest push. And obviously, it was included in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And there was a lot of great things that we wanted to support in that. So we had a nationwide campaign to really get behind the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we were trying to thank all of the candidates that actually supported that with events and different media.
And where can people find out more about Americans for Prosperity? Because they're very active locally. You can join in. They host events. Where can they learn out more about if they want to get involved with AFP?
Yeah. So we are all over the state. We have people that are leading different regions of the state. But if you want to find out more information, www.americansforprosperity.org.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, tell Heather I said hello,
sir.
and thanks for that interview. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Hey, if people don't realize how important that group is in this state.
Well, let's talk about that.
A lot of campaigning.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second and how important that can be to a candidate for a group like AFP to gather, donate, and to sort of bundle support for these candidates. That can be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only does it provide extra monetary support, but what it can also do for these candidates is it provides them a way to get out attack lines and go after their opponents without having to put their own names on it. Sometimes people don't like it when individual candidates go negative. Making sure your disclosures don't say paid for by Nate Morris, paid for by Andy Barr, paid for by Daniel Cameron. Instead, they can say paid for by Kentuckians concerned about Kentucky's future or whatever PAC. I just made that up. That doesn't exist. But,
hey, that's pretty
instead,
good.
It can choose a PAC name like that, and it's more effective sometimes to have a text coming from there.
Thank you, Andrew Cooper Ryder from Fancy Farm, live from Fancy Farm. And that's a great point, guys, is that the current environment for running for office, you want to kind of have a good guy and bad guy, you know, good cop and bad cop. I'm still hearing things in my ear, but that's okay. But anyhow, but that's a good point about having someone out there who can sort of be your attack dog
right.
and get things out you want to say, but you don't want to be the one, you don't want the negative feedback or criticism or perception of that.
Exactly.
I think that's a great point. But AFP, Americans for Prosperity, is becoming a very influential group. It has been nationally, but I think more so, Bob Scott, in our state in recent years.
No doubt. It's those groups that really have turned the tide. Certainly in the last election, I think of Charlie Kirk, jumping in with his group and going to college campuses and speaking very strongly for the president. And really, a lot of people argue that it was that generation, the Generation Z folks, that actually helped put Trump over the top. Besides, folks like Elon Musk jumping on board as well. But I just can't tell you the impact.
Yeah, exactly right. And a lot of that goes to show that we're in this moment in the Republican Party of who are we as Republicans? So what is the party about? And I think today is a perfect representation of this really quasi-civil war that's going on in the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
Are we going to be the establishment Republican Party?
Civil war,
civil, but it's getting, hey, this is Fancy Farm. It could be more than philosophical. Might be some
of the barbs,
some barbecue flying back and forth today. But this is a fascinating moment because we're still not done. What is the Republican Party about? Is it a MAGA party? Is it this populist conservative party? Is it this more protectionist, tariff-oriented party, or is it the traditional, establishment Republican? And today is going to be just a test of that, so it's a beautiful one. And let me say this about Fancy Farm too. The wonderful thing about Fancy Farm is this. I think Kentucky should be really proud of this. This is probably one of the few events in this country where we can really see a candidate sort of defend their legacy or defend their positions in a little bit more of a free-flowing, informal position, almost like British parliamentarian, almost like question times in the British Parliament. Yep. And so if you, this
is kind of refreshing.
It is refreshing.
It's under pressure. How a candidate performs while people are yelling from there.
That's exactly right.
I don't think I could. I don't know.
And Tom, you make a really good point. You referred it to the British Parliament. It's boy, if you've ever watched any proceedings,
but this is like that on steroids.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it really is.
With the Kentucky twist on it, with this hillbilly twist on it. Yeah. It is an awesome thing. It's so much so that C-SPAN will generally carry this live every year because it is such good television. So,
well, you're seeing it live here today on Channel 21, this coverage, and we appreciate you joining us here on Kentucky's Voice. By the way, you can hear our show each weekday, 11 to noon right here, and one of us three are hosting, or some of our guest hosts, Andrew Cooper-Ryder and others. We'd love to hear from you today on our Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970, and you can hear the show live on the radio. You're listening to it live on radio, YouTube, Facebook, across the social media platforms today.
Text
and we are conservative. We are conservative media.
Text us and tell us who you would vote for.
That's
this
right.
one. Have you made have you made your mind up on this primary? Is it got to be Cameron, Barr, or Morris? So I'm undecided. Bob, are you undecided? What about you, Jim?
So I think Morris. We need to talk a little more about him today. We're going to take a break here and come back with more coverage of 2025 version of Fancy Farm down in Western Kentucky. If you haven't ever been there, you need to put this on your bucket list, folks. You need to go. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the 2025
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. We'll return with more live coverage right after this. Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
And we're live here on the ground at Fancy Farm, and I'm joined by Representative John Hodgson coming out of Louisville, of course, back in your all's area. John, a lot of people don't know who they're going to support. First off, you're the only guy who can make me look small. Second thing, I appreciate it. But there's a lot of people confused on who to support. There's no doubt, though, on who you're supporting. Go ahead and give him a turn around here. Nate Morris, U.S. Senate, wearing this orange reflective gear, representing his experience in the garbage industry.
That's right.
John, why are you supporting Nate Morris here today?
I have always been a fan of outsider candidates that are disruptors of the status quo. I think we need to disrupt the status quo in Washington. People tend to hang around the swamp too long, get too comfortable. I think Nate is an outsider. He's a businessman. He is going to shake things up. He's fearless. He doesn't need to go there for the money. He's going there to support Donald Trump and try to save America.
Is there one policy of his in specific that you think just really represents his candidacy and really represents the reason why you support him?
I think immigration is probably the biggest thing. He's taking the hardest stance on immigration, saying we need a complete moratorium on immigration until we eject Joe Biden's 21 million illegals from this country.
Now, last time around, though, last primary, you did support Daniel Cameron during the governor's primary. He's running in this. He's not in the primary. You're supporting Nate Morris. Is there a specific reason why?
Well, Daniel's certainly a friend, and we've remained friendly. And it's difficult when everybody in a primary is your friend. But I think Nate's the right guy for this race.
Well, John, thank you so much for representing Louisville down here in Fancy Farm. Back to you, Jim, in the studio.
Thank you, Andrew, and great point there. And we're joined now by Vladimir Aguilar, who you'll see on this program, Kentucky's Voice, frequently, and also on the Cuban Show. We want to give that a shout out there to a great conservative Kentuckian and a great conservative Cuban Kentuckian. Vladimir, welcome in to our coverage today. And you've also, we want to talk about a couple of the other candidates in this race. Yes. Michael Ferris from, I believe, Hardin County is running, and you've had some contact with him. And I also want to mention there is a Democrat running. We'll talk about her in a minute. She's had a background in state politics as well. But talk about Michael Ferris and what you think people need to know about him. I know he's on the grounds today at Fancy Farm.
Yes, actually, I met him like a few weeks ago. We were in a Frankfurt rally for Trump, to celebrate the 100 days of Trump in the White House. And then
we'll clear up. He's running for the Senate race as well.
Yeah. He's running. Right. They don't mention him too much out there, but I talked to the guy. We shared lunch and all of that. And I was talking to him, about what is the motivation to run on the campaign. And man, I can tell you he's a fighter. He was fighting all those mandates back in 2020 with the COVID and all of that. And the guy, he's a tough guy. He's running against the
Give us a little about his background. And
he owns a helicopter maintenance business. I was talking to the guy. He was in Australia like a few days ago, and now he's on the Fancy Farm. So that's something, that is not.
He's a world traveler.
Yeah, and he was in the Army. He's a patriot. I feel he was deployed like a couple times or something like that. And that's where he got the skills for the helicopter maintenance and all of that. But especially he owns like that tough thing that you need to run a campaign, especially in politics.
He has grit. Yeah. He has the grit.
I think that's an important point. Don't
it
you,
really
Tom?
is. It really is, exactly. And it goes to show, these we're talking about Morris and Barr and Cameron today because they're going to be speaking, but there are other people running, and there's also talk of other people who still getting in the race. So it's still somewhat early, but you still have three names there. They have a lot of name recognition, so it's going to be a challenge for somebody like Ferris to really break through. But so what could he do? What could Ferris do to really kind of break through the
Well, he refused at all to get any money out of the those PACs or whatever, because he's using his own money to support his campaign.
That's good.
And of course, he got no political background, so he's trying to make his way by himself,
That's
so
right, yeah.
that's why I'm supporting him, because
Yeah.
he's a regular citizen.
And I want to
Exactly
make sure we're clear. He's running as a Republican in the
yeah,
Republican
as a Republican,
primary.
yeah.
right.
And
If I'm supporting the guy,
he's
100%.
And if you're talking about an outsider, he's definitely an outsider there. It's tough in this day and time, though, guys, to run without the resources. You know,
Yes.
it's
It really
tough
is.
to really be
Yes.
successful. And I know people, on the one hand, we hear people say, well, it shouldn't be about money, and maybe it shouldn't be. But the fact is, it's like the guy who said, money may not make me feel good. It makes a trip a whole lot better.
Yeah, sure. It
You know,
sure does.
Money,
It sure does.
money doesn't. So
Yeah.
in terms of a political race, it does as well. And Michael, now also on the Democratic side, I wanted to talk about the Democratic candidate Pamela Stevenson, who who ran previously for Attorney General. She was in the Kentucky House of Representatives.
Yep.
So she's announced as a Democratic candidate. But you're right. I think we're going to maybe see more candidates. And let me
Probably
bring
so.
up one name that I think we may see, and that is Scott Jennings.
Scott Jennings,
You know,
yes.
Scott,
Okay. That's
Scott
right.
Jennings he's also very, like McConnell, a little bit in terms of his background. He was very close to Mitch McConnell,
right.
helped him win
Yes.
elections in
That's
the
right.
past, has been a very big supporter of his, but now has become a favorite of Donald Trump,
That's
which is
right.
very interesting in
we
his
go.
work with CNN.
Yeah,
So,
now he hasn't announced yet, but there's a lot of
No.
talk, and he's from Louisville. He
Right.
ran a PR firm here in Louisville, and of course he's well known as a CNN commentator now. He's owning the libs every day on CNN. It's a
I
wonderful
love
thing.
what he does.
He's great. It's great. Look, if I could, I'd like to ask Vlad something. This whole day is going to be about the McConnell legacy, right? Because we're looking to see who's going to replace McConnell. And so, what is your perspective on the McConnell legacy, and what are people saying in the Cuban community? Because there's a very large Cuban community in Louisville and in Kentucky, and they vote generally Republicans. So you're going to see a lot of them voting in the primary. What do they think about the McConnell legacy?
Well, actually, we were part of the 2020 campaign for McConnell.
Oh, you were? Okay.
We were,
Yeah,
trying
sure.
to
Right.
to support him. But
Right.
then after the elections, whatever happens, he was, he say to Joe Biden, "Hey, congratulations!" Even before the
That's right.
the elections were
Were
certified.
over. Yeah, that's
you know?
right.
And
Yeah.
we got upset with that. So
That's right.
no. We realized no, you are part of the deep state.
That's
you are
right.
part of the swamp. We don't want to support you anymore.
That's it.
But now, Cubans are tired of McConnell and the deep state in Washington.
So this
100%.
off of
There we
our
go.
text, Kentucky's Voice text line, 502-571-0970. This texter says, don't really like any of the possible candidates to replace Mitch McConnell. Is there time to find someone else to run? This texter says, maybe Thomas Massey. Then he says Rand Paul. Of course, Rand Paul's already a United States Senator, so he probably was thinking, though, about somebody like a Liberty-type candidate who could jump in. He said, I like those guys a lot and wish we had more like them. Now, Thomas Massey's name has been thrown around a little bit. And there's another interesting political study.
He's polemic out there with him that, I'm trying to stay a little bit outside because the guy has been doing a great job. We have to recognize that.
Yeah, but at the same time, if anybody should be in this Fancy Farm lineup today, it should be Thomas Massey. And so,
Yes.
Massey, I'm going to call you out. You should have been there today.
Well,
I'll tell you what. Let me say this, Jim, before you interrupt. You should have been there today because you have had national coverage. You've got the president coming after you. You need to defend your legacy. I like a lot of what you do. I like a lot of your instincts, but you've got some criticism, and they're valid criticism. So why not respond to the voters of Kentucky in your district and be at Fancy Farm and respond to this?
And but let me, not to interrupt, but to interrupt a little bit, is Thomas Massey has been there in the past, and it's not unusual if there's not a campaign or something going on for a person not to be there. So I think we need to add that in. But we're going to go back to live
Trump's
coverage
going to
of
primary. Trump is trying to primary you, so it's time to say something.
He's
about
not.
it.
He's not. It's not happening yet. But
Well,
when it
he's
does,
trying.
we hope Congressman Massey should be there. That's
All
right.
right.
And I think he has been there in the past, and he will be. Let's go back to live to Fancy Farm to Andrew Cooperrider, who's with Michael Ferris, one of the candidates we were just talking about. And glad you got him, Andrew. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here with Michael Ferris, one of the candidates running for Senate that isn't up on stage today. First, let me ask you, did you ask to get on stage today? Was there what's the process, and why aren't you up there?
Well, to be honest with you, we haven't been really told or explained kind of how that works. I've had some of my volunteers reached out to these folks, and one of the, I believe, chairs of the event kind of said, he didn't really know how it was all supposed to go, but that, the time was full and kind of it is what it is kind of deal.
Guys, we're not hearing anything.
Hold on 1 second here. Is my audio coming in good? Okay. Sorry about that. I was hearing something in my ear real quick. So, not up there today, but you are out here walking around. This is a different environment. Can you give us some idea, if you were on stage, what you would talk about?
Well, I mean, really, we wish to bring a bit of authenticity to this race and kind of show people that, there is an opportunity for someone who's kind of like the regular folks who can get into this game, kind of bust through it without paying for all these, quote unquote volunteers and the signage on the way into the place. I mean, these guys are putting on a great event. They got a lot of cool stuff going, but basically what I would say is that we got to get back to a constitutional republic, civil liberties. We got to protect, the rights of these parents with children. Term limits are a must. So that's kind of what our campaign is about, man. And so that's where we kind of want to reside, is in that, break in from the back to the front type deal. We really don't like all the hype, but it's cool to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Now, do you have people out here that'll be holding signs up, yelling for you while people are chanting, or have you put together grassroots here?
Yeah, there was several that were supposed to show up today. There were some people that did have some family issues that come up, but I got my wife, kid here, a couple of volunteers that were able to make it. We do have signs. We've got a booth set up, shirts, hats, stickers, the whole lot. We spoke this morning at the Graves County Republican breakfast, and so that was received pretty well, I think. Met a lot of new faces there and gained what seems to be some good support from that spot.
And if people want to learn more about you, where can they do so?
Yeah, you can just visit FarisForSenate.com. That's FARIS with one single R. A lot of people mix that up, but FarisForSenate.com. There's some social links on the website. There's some tabs for media. And of course, my phone number is there publicly on the website. Reach out to me, call me, text me, and we'll get back with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Michael Farris. You guys can learn more about him. Back to you, Jim, there in the studio.
Thank you, Andrew. Great job there at Fancy Farm. We're covering it live today here on Kentucky's Voice. And guys, talking as we were talking before the break, there are these events. Kentucky has elections 3 out of every 4 years. And so this is 1 year we don't have any elections, but it's still interesting. And I do agree. I think if you're going to make your case, you need to show up at events like this. And it'd be great if we had more
Thomas
of that. Well, and to your point, though, I don't want to be unfair to him, though, because there's a lot of folks that probably should be there if we want to go that route that should be. So, and they're not.
Politics.
We're not going to call.
Fair.
We're not going to call everybody out here.
It's politics. It's not fair.
But they'll do that if you go down there. They'll call you out.
That's right.
But anyhow, Flabber, in terms of Michael's campaign, of course, running a very grassroots type campaign, is it possible for a candidate in these times that we're in to run that type of campaign and win and be successful?
Well, these days you need two things: money and the grit to run. Sometimes money is not enough if you don't have any connections, especially like on the political side. But I know that we need to take big money out of the politics.
But it's important, isn't it, in a race to have people bringing their views if they feel like there's not something being discussed. And Michael feels like, I think that there's some things that need to be shared about all the candidates. Yes. And he can bring that to the race, even if he doesn't win, he can cause that discussion debate.
Because actually that's what's people tire of, why we letting people who go on the politics for 20, 50 years, and then what about we the people? That's what the nation is made of, we the people. And I feel, in my belief, Michael Farris is one of those we the people. So that's why I'm supporting him.
Well, he did have a really cool beard. I got to hand him. I mean,
he gets some award for
he has some cool.
Well, what
cool
about, you want to talk about folks that aren't here that should be, what about Andy Bashir, Where's he at today, guys?
Exactly right. That's right. Mr. Bashir, you should be there today. Shame on you.
Yeah. We're going to let Tom do that.
You want to run for president? You want to run for president? All right. And you don't show up to Fancy Farm? Come on, Andy.
What are your chances?
I love when he called people, because sometimes people are kind of afraid, but I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, It's true. If you want to, and of course, one thing Thomas Massey doesn't have a problem with in our state is name recognition, and that might not all be for good reasons here.
He went through a lot of stuff with the Democrats in Washington, so I don't know why he's not there.
Well,
that's right, exactly right.
Because, and guys, he will. I predict that Thomas Massey will be there when he's running for office. He will be there, and his opponent will be
He
there.
likes Thomas Massey.
Yeah, I know. You remember that time when Jamal was yelling at him on the Congress?
I remember that.
I said, like,
he defended himself so well.
He don't even.
I mean,
Actually, I like
right.
all these guys. I think they're all bringing up important points, and I think they all contribute to this. I like them personally all.
Yeah.
It's like someone said on there, I think Representative Hodgson made a good point about, hey, all these guys are my friends, but here's the guy I think can win. And I think we have to get back to this ability to have these discussions and talk about things, even if we don't agree on everything. And I think that makes it interesting.
Hey, Jim, I'd like to ask you this, because you're probably the most insightful person we have in Kentucky's Voice. What are the issues that we should be listening for today? What are some of the key things that are going to get these guys elected? And obviously the Trump agenda.
It's going to be his agenda. It's going to be his agenda. And I think things that affect Kentucky, tariffs. I think it'd be interesting to hear if we hear anything about tariffs today and the impact it's going to have on Kentucky, good or otherwise. Of course, President Trump, and the administration's been making the point that this is bringing in tremendous revenues, and it's working.
Economic issues.
And I think there's going to be a lot, and not just economic, but I think in particular that. Of course, we had the announcement this week, the economy is both doing well, but also interest rates are going to remain up because there's uncertainty there. So about the economy overall, are we going to hear some things that will give us some more certainty?
On the immigration side also. I feel that's one of the key points.
Well, I was getting to that.
Okay, there we go.
Immigration.
Right.
And we talked the other day with Kevin Kramer, who's the Metro Council member, about the impact that immigration's having on Louisville, and we've talked a lot on this program about that. But I do think we'll hear about that, and because I think it's a good talking point for Republicans who want Trump's support. I think they're going to have to be willing to talk about, and like Representative Hodgson did about all these about the 20 million illegals, and they weren't all Joe Biden. I got to correct him. I mean, we heard the clip of Bush being criticized for all the illegals, so nobody's done anything about this border.
But in the past 4 years, there's been 20 million just under Biden. I mean,
but even the immigrants support that. Like, I'm an immigrant.
That's right.
I don't support that madness we went through.
Well, let me ask you that too. What I'm finding is that legal immigrants, people who are here legally, are the biggest opponent of the open borders and of Joe
I'm one
Biden's
of those.
policy.
I'm one of those because I had to wait like 4 years before I got my son here.
That's right.
Well, you had to go through the process.
Yeah, I applied for my, family reunion and trying to get him over here, and then I brought my mother-in-law and all of that. But through the legal,
that's right. People that do it legally are the most offended. They're the most offended by this system that we have now.
And I think
rightfully so.
I think today it's going to be interesting what we hear from Senator McConnell. I think he's going to try, as we said, not only to defend his legacy, but to also to do that in light of, hey, here I've been supportive of this agenda in large part. We'll hear what he has to say about that. That will be the most anticipated.
And
speech,
I want to make sure I want to be clear about something, like especially to the immigrants and Latinos and Hispanic and all of that. Guys, stop saying like, oh, these people did nothing wrong. If you are illegally in a country, you are committing a crime. You've broken the law.
That's right.
Amen.
So that's it. Period.
That's it. Bottom line. Yeah.
And well also, I think we're going to hear. It'll be interesting. I think Nate Morris's speech and Senator McConnell. Those are going to be the two most anticipated speeches. And I was a little concerned. I wasn't at the event, but you were talking about when Nate Morris was here with Charlie Kirk and how he seemed a little bit nervous. And so let's we're going to go back out to Fancy Farm with Andrew Cooperrider. We'll pick this discussion up in a moment. But Andrew, thanks for all the work you're doing. You're doing a great job. Take it away.
Thanks. You wouldn't know it's my first time being a live correspondent on the ground if I'm doing such a good job. But anyways. Natural. Anyways, I'm here with Mike Fisher. Now, he's a state house candidate out of District 70. That's up in like Cynthiana area. You guys were just talking about how important even people not running in this area it is to come down here and get that recognition. So I figured it would be interesting to grab this state house rep candidate that's coming so far to Fancy Farm. Why are you down here? Why did you find this to be important?
Well, I've always been a real fan of the event. I've watched it on TV forever. I've wanted to come, and I just hadn't made it. So this year, I thought I'm going to do it. I'm a candidate, and though I'm not a Western Kentucky candidate, the thought was I can make connections with
West Kentucky. Let's be clear. Okay, he made the mistake. I fixed him on it. Western Kentucky is Bowling Green. West Kentucky is the Purchase.
You got it. All right. But it's just good to come out, and a lot of these folks, I've met over the years as chairman of our local party, and so it's great to see them in person and at the event. So I'm thrilled, having a great time.
Now, you've been chair of a party, kind of putting together, bringing people in to events and putting these kinds of things together. Obviously, this is a lot bigger than what you're used to. Is it important to you as an organizer, as people, to see that candidates are coming into your area? Or is that something where if somebody can't make it, that's okay? Because that's what they're discussing back in the studio. Should some other people like Thomas Massey have been out here to help defend his legacy?
I think it does help. I really do. And, we've always tried to bring in some of the candidates, whether it's immediately in our area or some of the others outside, just outside. People want to come and hear and see, first and foremost, what's going on. And so we just had an event about a month ago, and we had some folks out of Fayette County come over because they wanted to see some of the candidates. So I think it's important for the chance to get up and speak in front of even a crowd that isn't immediately in your district.
And where can people learn more about you?
I am on Facebook, Mike Fisher for KY State Rep. I've been handing that information out quite a bit, and I've always given up my phone number, 859-234-6394. Give me a call. I'd love to talk.
Well, that is Mike Fisher. Now, he's running for what is William Lawrence's now state house seat, but William Lawrence isn't running for re-election, so that is an open seat. So it is interesting, of course, seeing him down there. Thank you for your time. Yes, that's correct. He's a Republican running for that House seat. Well, I'm here live on the ground, but we've got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll have the speeches starting up here locally. They're gearing up. It's starting to get loud. It's a little different here, if I could just say real quick, having been here several times. Normally, you have Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other side. Today, it's all Republicans. So this promises to be a pretty interesting event because you got Nate Morris, Andy Barr, Comer and Cameron signs all throughout. I'm not seeing a single sign for a Democrat, at least yet. I haven't seen one yet. So it's certainly an interesting environment.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. We'll return with more live coverage right after this. Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
And thanks for joining us here for live coverage of 2025's version of Fancy Farm. One thing that's always the same at Fancy Farm, there's always a lot of pork. Both the literal and the political kind of pork. But also, of course, it's a great fundraiser for St. Jerome Parish. Or has been for 104. This is the 145th annual Fancy Farm Picnic. Think about all the times that we've gone through in 145 years in this country, in this Commonwealth, but Fancy Farm has made it.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is
just
amazing.
To think about
it's a great Kentucky tradition.
Yeah.
And I agree with Tom. I don't want to be. I think if you're going to get especially if you're a challenger in one of these races, you need to be there. You need to be everywhere that folks are interested in political issues. And we're joined now, happy to be joined in the studio by Dr. Lance Pearson, who's one of our great guest hosts on Kentucky's Voice, and I'm glad I could bring him into the fold here. And Lance, you're with the Kentucky Liberty Caucus.
That's right.
And there it is right there on the screen. But thanks for taking some time here on this Saturday to join us. You've been to Fancy Farm. You said the 3 of the last 4 years.
That's right.
Give us your take on what's happening. Of course, Kentucky has elections 3 out of every 4 years, and I'm making the point that in those years that we have elections, we certainly have more going on in terms of speakers here, but there's some interesting things happening this year as well. What's your take on this?
I think that's definitely right, and this event happens in the first Saturday in August, so this usually happens after the primaries.
You're right.
And as we know in Kentucky, most elections are really decided in the primary. Like, we've got the red areas, we got the blue areas, and once we figure out who wins the primaries, we know who's going to win the general.
Yeah. Isn't that more true now than it was with the Republicans, especially? That's really where the war takes place, isn't it? Is in a lot of those.
I think it's true in both.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only a handful of districts that are even really purple, and so I would argue that this is a political year for Fancy Farm, because this is the last time they're going to have a Fancy Farm before the next primary that really settles a lot of things.
So let's talk about that. Not only is it settling things, but it's kind of an early. We're starting to get some early undercurrents about the next gubernatorial race here in Kentucky. First of all, how big is that going to be? And Bob Scott, I'll ask you as well. Yeah. How big is? I think this is going to be important for Republicans to really be competitive.
I think it really is. Now, fortunately for Republicans, Andy Beshear is term limited out. So he may run for president. Who knows? I'm certainly hoping he doesn't, but who knows? But
so you're not going to vote for him?
I probably won't vote for him for even dog catcher. If he runs for dog catcher,
well, that pretty much clears it up, Dr. Lance Pearson.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is. That's right, he is, and I think we're going to see some folks here.
Oh, he's running for president.
Well, I think we're going to see some folks at Fancy Farm though try to take advantage, and some Republicans right of that vacuum.
I think that's right. That's why I'm a little bit surprised that Jacqueline Coleman didn't show up. Even Rocky Atkins. Yeah. Those are the 2 Democrat names that you hear in that race. And then on the Republican side, James Comer has all but declared that he's going to run for governor next time. There is some buzz associated with maybe Michael Adams. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Mark Metcalf, who's speaking. Yeah. Maybe he could throw his hat in the race. And as we were talking off air, Allison Ball is always a name that comes up.
Yeah, and of course, she's served in 2 different statewide constitutional offices. She's garnered the most votes in one of those of any of those candidates. So she's very much got to be part of that discussion. But you know, I think you're going to see some Michael Adams, and you're going to see some others test out their political chops here and their lines, their talking points. All right, let's go back. We're really delighted today to have Andrew Cooperrider out at Fancy Farm in Western Kentucky. Andrew, if you haven't had a pork sandwich yet, you've got to have one, but you cannot go to Fancy Farm, and I don't mean just political pork. You've got to have yourself some pork out there, but we're going to throw it to you now, and we're just delighted to have you there with us today. Thank you.
It is absolutely getting ruckus here. I don't know how much you all can hear, but they haven't even begun speaking. Just as people are getting on stage, it's starting to get loud, carried away. It looks like the Nate Morris campaign has actually brought out trash can lids for people to beat on in order to show their support for him. Now, you all were talking about Comer running for governor. I have to tell you, this morning's breakfast, that certainly came up. Jonathan Schell, when he was talking this morning, he was talking about Comer running for governor. He started leading a chant, Comer for governor. The crowd absolutely went wild. People started chanting about it. It definitely seems like Comer is pretty locked in to run for that governor spot. And why wouldn't he? He doesn't have to give up his congressional seat to do so. And he's always wanted to be there. And he certainly has quite a lot of notoriety. And that's an important thing to watch out for, because Comer will be one of our first speeches, and he's got a very large cheering section here. Repetition makes you perfect. Comer knows how to pull off a fantastic Fancy Farm.
Andrew, can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I want to just ask you about Comer for a moment. You know, he's been through the gubernatorial wars before. You know, he lost a very close primary to the eventual winner, Matt Bevin. So he's got to be considered a favorite in terms of how to run this race in Kentucky.
Yeah, he's definitely considered a favorite. What's really interesting about that race is you'd normally say Comer's going to walk away with it. But I have to be honest, my insiders are telling me that Thomas Massie himself is looking at running for that governor spot as well. That could lead to a Thomas Massie versus Comer runoff. And I tell you what, here in Kentucky, there's no two districts that have more support from their own district than Thomas Massie and Comer do as well. So that will be interesting to watch, that governor's race.
Great point, Andrew Cooperrider. Thank you for your coverage. And back here in the studio with Dr. Lance Pearson and my friend Robert Scott, who's you can hear here on Mondays and Tuesdays on Kentucky's Voice. But Dr. Pearson, this is going to be interesting. And how important? I'm going to pick up on that. You know, a lot of the things that Republicans, you know, of course, we have a very strong Republican legislature. They've had to do a lot of work, though, overriding vetoes. And boy, that would change, would it not, with a Republican governor here? How important? And I think it's important on certain issues. School choice, for example, being one of those. Having a governor supportive of that, which this governor has fought us on that, and it's a big issue for our state. But just in general, I think it would definitely change a lot of the dynamics in Frankfort, don't you?
I think that's true. The truth is, the governor in Kentucky is not a particularly powerful position.
Right.
In order to override a veto, you only need a simple majority in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Whereas,
but they have a bully pulpit.
That's right, exactly. That's what I was leading into.
Yeah.
The real power of the governor is that bully pulpit, and you see Andy working that every time he can. If there's a car wash that's got a grand reopening coming, Andy Bashir will be out there with a big sign, and as long as there's a camera there.
I'm surprised he's not down there today, because he could have one of his COVID updates from Fancy Farm today about what other businesses he's going to shut down and what churches he's going to send the state troopers out to take
100%.
down license plate numbers. Bob Scott, I think we're going to see some folks trying out, as we were saying before we went to Andrew, trying out their lines, if you will. This is a good place to do that.
Well, you know what? We're already bringing a little bit of Fancy Farm into the studio right now. You're taking a couple shots there, you know, Jim, and really that's the beauty of it.
But I can handle it here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again, it's a refreshing part of our republic, our state, to have the ability to just get out and allow these conversations to happen. You said something interesting, Lance, that really, we heard Andrew Cooperrider talking about, but I never thought about, seriously, Thomas Massie jumping into the fray. You know, wouldn't that be interesting if that happens?
Well, it certainly would be an interesting race. This off our text line, 502-571-0970. This texter said, I'm undecided in the Senate race outside of being never being capitalized and Barr being capitalized. I'm looking for a strong conservative, not a moderate, masquerading as a conservative. I think this is going to be more important today for Nate Morris, this event, than maybe the other candidates. They're a more known quantity, but Nate Morris, folks have seen a little bit of everything from him, and this is going to be his chance to define his candidacy. If he doesn't, Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr will.
I think that's right. And to whoever the texter was, I'm right there with you.
Okay.
Well, my hope is that we'll learn a little bit more about Nate Morris. And honestly, Andy Barr isn't that well known outside of his district.
That's
He's
right.
very well known in his district. He's very well known among the bankers because he's part of that. He's part of the financial services subcommittee.
Yeah.
But like, if you're in Western Kentucky, do you really know what his policy positions are?
I think his advantage is he's won, which Daniel Cameron. Daniel Cameron's Attorney General, so he's won a statewide race. Andy Barr has not won a statewide race. However, he's been in a very tough district where the Democrats tried to
Every
draw
cycle.
the district, redistrict him out of office. And I think so. He knows how to campaign in tough campaigns. We're going to see an interesting campaign.
Yeah,
I think. Let me ask you this:
go ahead.
Nate Morris. I think he has to define who he is.
Well, I think that's going to be a big part of it, Jim. I will say this: are you guys getting the feeling that more than the feeling, just by the actions that have happened so far, that the other two candidates are kind of ganging up? On Nate Morris, you know, as a candidate, you know, and that's where a lot of folks are saying the other two candidates are quote unquote the establishment guys, you know, the McConnell guys, if you will. So it is going to be interesting. We know that Morris has the money, no doubt about it. He's a billionaire. You know, now it's, Jim, what you said is going to be very critical. I think this is going to potentially define his candidacy and really launch him, you know, onto what he hopes will be a successful race.
And if I can interject, sure. I think that's a lot of why both the Barr campaign and the Cameron campaign are attacking him personally.
They're afraid of him.
Well, they are afraid of him, but he's also undefined, and they want to define him before he can define himself.
And that's a classic Mitch McConnell political, and they're both and especially Daniel Cameron, which
and Mitch McConnell's won a lot of elections in this state.
But I'll just put this in as a side. That's what happened to Daniel Cameron when he ran for governor.
You're right.
And Andy Beshear defined Daniel Cameron before he ever began defining himself, which is a classic political move. Yeah. And we've seen that from Mitch McConnell. We are covering Kentucky's great political event here. It's the unofficial, I guess I should say, the unofficial kickoff of the political season at Fancy Farm out in Western Kentucky. And we're glad to have you with us today, joining us across our platforms, Facebook, YouTube. We're live on Channel 21 right here in Louisville, Kentucky, and live on the radio. My favorite, Bob Scott, 970 WGTK. As you can hear this program, Kentucky's Voice, every weekday at 11 a.m., 11 to noon. And the two guys with me and myself, we take turns hosting this program. I'm usually on Wednesdays. Lance, you're coming up with some more programs. Bob Scott's here Mondays and Tuesdays. We want to hear from you, 502-571-0970. Want to hear your comments. Who are you going to vote for? Who are you leaning toward? Are you watching this today thinking, hey, I'm not made up my mind yet, but I want to hear what Nate Morris has to say? I think a lot of people are going to be in that position. He has an opportunity, and this is one of those things, guys. It can either be a great win or it can be a big dud. It's going to go either way for him today. And so what do you, any other?
Well, let me ask a question. Here,
I think we need to go to a break. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think it's going to be critical. We know next year is the midterms. You know, from a presidential standpoint, typically the party in power loses, you know, in the midterms. We got to ask the question, is that going to happen this time around? You know, and I think a lot's going to be defined in how well President Trump continues to do over the next year.
Yep.
Yeah, and these events, like Fancy Farm, are an opportunity for his supporters to make that case right here. And this goes out, and Tom Fallbush made this point earlier about C-SPAN doing this event. So this isn't something that's just seen here in Kentucky. This is something that's seen nationwide. I'm sure the Trump folks are watching today to see how strong Andy Barr really is in terms of supporting Trump's agenda and what Nate Morris has to say. But I think that's a good point. This is a chance, an opportunity to kind of defend his record.
Yep, I think that's definitely true. I think the Trump campaign, all of these candidates are lobbying for that because they know how powerful in a primary a Trump endorsement is. So I'm sure that will be a mention in all of these speeches. I am excited to see Nate Morris on a big stage like this. And I want to just emphasize, this is a unique opportunity for Kentucky. There are very few places in the United States where they still conduct these raucous, heckling from the crowd,
Yeah.
these types of events.
And that's what
Yeah.
happens here. Let's be clear.
Absolutely.
You don't get up there and get a free pass.
Yeah. That's right.
No matter who you are.
That's right.
Andy Bashir, I remember he got hit hard by Republicans. And sometimes these candidates bring folks with them for that purpose. They're very good at this. And we're glad today to have Andrew Cooperrider on the scene there in Western Kentucky. And Andrew, thanks for all the work you're doing out there. Let's go to Andrew out at Fancy Farm Picnic.
Absolutely. So they've just gotten through the prayer, starting to gear up into the speeches, to the national anthem and some other things here. Now, one of the things that we saw leading up to this is the chanting was going. We started seeing some signs, and that can tell us kind of what they're going to be talking about. Now, we know Cameron, based upon some messages he's made over the past few days and to media last night, I think we're going to hear some jokes on Nate Morris for that Nikki Haley donation. We're also seeing some Andy Barr people walking around with giant checks from Nate Morris to Nikki Haley. Of course, this is an attack that he has supported Nikki Haley instead of always being that Trump supporter he claims to be. Now, he was asked about this, I believe, by Mario Anderson on Spectrum News, maybe he was on, and he was asked about that, and he finally gave a reasoning behind that, and he said that his wife had made the donation and put it in his name. And so I would expect to hear Daniel Cameron making some jokes about Nate Morris throwing his wife under the bus. He and based upon some of the other signs we've seen, the Barr campaign's walking around with Nate Morris signs that have Nate Morris on it, dressed in rainbow and kind of like drag, of course, alluding to his quote unquote liberal background that they say that he has coming from his time in corporate America. And then we also have the Cameron campaign walking around, as I said earlier, handing out those straws, handing out those stock certificates. But now you have the Morris campaign. They have, of course, the orange vests. They drove in on a trash truck. Nate Morris actually rode on the back of the trash truck in here as far as it goes. So obviously it's starting to already get ruckus. They're handing out the trash pail lids. And so that certainly points to this being a very exciting. Now, I will say I see Mitch McConnell up on stage, so I can confirm it would be very odd for him to be here and not make a speech. So we probably will hear from Mitch McConnell for the last time at Kentucky's Fancy Farm here today. And he's feeling pretty spicy today. I can tell you this morning he was very much so in the mood to defend his legacy.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. We'll return with more live coverage right after this.
How much time?
Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
You're a political junkie. This is a big day for you, okay? And we have them in Kentucky, and some of them are at Fancy Farm, and many of them are watching this show today as we cover the event live from Western Kentucky. It's a political picnic, guys. It's a picnic. Yep. It's got a lot of pork there, both literal and political. Right. And some of it's going to get thrown, some of it's going to get fried. When the speakers go at Fancy Farm, you have to contend with a very interactive, we'll say that in the day of social media. This is a very interactive experience. But glad to have you with us, and we're going to have more discussion here with my co-host here, Tom Fallbush and Bob Scott. But we want to tell you, Kentucky's Voice, you can hear this every day, 11 to noon, right here. Great guest, great commentary and analysis, news and analysis and opinion from a conservative, common sense viewpoint. And we want to hear from you today on our Kentucky's Voice text line, 502-571-0970. Let us know what you think about the Senate race. Who are you going to vote for? Who are you supporting? Are you waiting to hear Nate Morris today? Are you waiting to hear what Senator McConnell has to say? What do you think about what the Republicans have done in this state over the last decade or so in terms of becoming the dominant party? This off our text line, guys. We'll start our discussion with this. Wait until the midterm when all these Republicans lose their jobs, which will be better for the whole country. We were talking, Tom Fallbush, about...
Wonder what party he supports.
We were talking in an earlier segment with Dr. Lance Pearson about the midterms and about how in Kentucky now, the real fights in much of our state is in the Republican primary.
That's exactly right. Yeah, now's the time. If you're a Republican, if you're a conservative in the state, you need to be paying attention right now because we've got to police ourselves, right? And so this moment of the Republican Party trying to figure out who it is, what it is it a MAGA party? Is it the Bush party, Reagan party, whatever? We've got to decide that right now. And so that's why today is so critical. Fancy Farm is Kentucky's town hall, but it's in a Kentucky flair, Kentucky style, and it's very engaging. So this is our town hall to figure out who's going to take McConnell's seat. One of the most powerful senators the state has ever seen.
Yes.
And probably one of the most powerful senators this country's ever seen. So who's going to take his seat? And he's here today to defend his legacy. But there's several folks that are positioning themselves as the anti-McConnell. Yeah. So you have to work. This moment is where we police ourselves and figure out what we're going to be as a party.
Well, really one in particular, and that's Nate Morris.
That's right.
And there's no doubt, there's a reason why McConnell showed up today, guys.
That's right.
He's there, one, to defend his legacy, but also there to frame or attempt to frame Nate Morris in a certain position.
That's right.
And those two things go together, right? Defending his legacy,
absolutely,
and some of the things Morris has thrown out there. And in all fairness, Mitch McConnell has been a staple at Fancy Farm many years. He's been there. He's not been the guy to avoid it, and I give him credit for not avoiding. And he's been willing to go and take the heat. Yeah. And by the way, a lot of events surround Fancy Farm. The GOP has lots of local events where they bring in, and Senator McConnell was there yesterday speaking to several different groups, and there's an early morning breakfast as well. So he's down there. You're right, and that's what he's doing. He's defending his legacy, and he's pushing back against claims by any means.
But you got to be careful with that because if he defends his legacy and he starts positioning himself as a supporter of one of these candidates, that could be the kiss of death for that candidate, right? Because there's a lot of anti-McConnell sentiment right now. So suddenly he's maybe Barr or Cameron is my guy. Suddenly Morris is going to shoot through the polls.
From an outsider looking in, it appears to be we know McConnell is. We were talking about how the party is changing and morphing, and it has. And
growing.
It's growing, yes. And I, for one, still believe we can be at that big tent party. Yes. We absolutely can be. I'll say it. I'm a Republican. But it's going to have to morph into something that is, in my opinion, more along the lines of MAGA or populist,
conservative populism.
The traditional. I'm just going to say the traditional Republican Party as we knew it is DEAD.
Yes, exactly.
On arrival.
That's right.
Well, it's really happening in both parties. Really,
well, that's true
Democrats
too.
Are
that's a good observation.
They're in their populist mode too. I mean, Bernie Sanders is basically a left-wing populist.
That's right.
But he just communist too. So
well, he's I mean, and I would say if you have any doubt about communism, to our good friend there in New York who's running as a communist, I'm sorry, a socialist, I'm sorry.
Right.
Just look at the dustbin of history and all the failed attempts at creating equal societies through government force at the end of a gun with the threat of those kind of threats. Anyhow, that's off topic, but that's for free. Hey, we're glad to have you with us today here. Let's get back here. Kentucky's Voice. You can see us across all the platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram today. We're everywhere, Bob Scott.
It's exciting.
How does it feel to be everywhere?
Hey, I don't know about that, but it feels great to be here. This gets my juices flowing. We are right now. The next year, I said it earlier, is going to be absolutely critical. Really, the next 6 months, because whoever wins the Republican primary is going to, I believe, is certainly from the Senate standpoint, is going to be our next senator.
Let me bring in the possibility, which we talked about in another segment, Tom, I think, with Dr. Pearson, is the possibility of some other candidates jumping in here. We talked about this earlier, too. But, we still haven't maybe heard all the candidates either. They're going to be here. And the Scott Jennings, now that's a really interesting, when you start talking about McConnell.
Outsider play.
Defending, but a lot of people would look at Scott Jennings and say he's not really an outsider.
That's true. That's right.
But if he gets Trump's endorsement, seems to be the thing that balances out people's concerns about.
Well, if he did get Trump's endorsement, I think it would be confusing for folks in the MAGA world, because it seems like with Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk backing Morris as strongly as they have, it would look like there's sort of dissension in the ranks.
I think that's a great point.
So I think Trump's probably locked into supporting Morris just because of his son and Kirk, and so those are the two most powerful surrogates he has.
Let me ask you this, Tom. We talked about this in the last segment, but this is a big day for Nate Morris in particular.
Yeah, it sure is.
And he's, as we said, he's going to have to define himself before Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr do much more. They've already out there.
I was just showing you guys in the break here. I'm sure many of you are Republicans are getting texts like this. These are coming from somebody, probably the Cameron campaign, some of the Barr campaign, attacking Morris, and so I get more anti-Morris literature thrown at me or messages at me.
And why
than
is
anything
that?
pro
Why
anything.
is it coming from both?
That's right.
Of those campaigns. That's the question we have to ask.
And I think from the beginning, from the beginning, we had Nate Morris. I had him on the Kentucky's Voice show early on in this before he announced. But, and he had run an op-ed here really, really hammering McConnell, really hard. But I think we've talked about this is going to be what happens, that the establishment vote, maybe he's counting on this, is going to be split, and he's going to find a pathway through that. That could happen. 502-571-0970. We want to hear from you. Who do you support in this race? Have you made up your mind? If you haven't, what is it that you need to hear? What do you need to see happen? What do you need Nate Morris? I will give Nate Morris so far the award for the best prop at Fancy Farm, which matters there. It really does.
But Jim,
with the garbage can lids.
Well, and I tell you what, I'm glad you brought that up, because it doesn't remind you of what McConnell did back in '84 when he ran with against D. Huddleston.
The Hound.
And he had the Hound out there.
That's right.
Saying, where's D. Huddleston?
That's right.
Has that same kind of feel to it.
Can I answer your question earlier? What do we need to hear from Nate Morris? We need to hear him answer these attacks, because these attacks do have me a bit concerned as well. If he really is a DEI CEO, right? If he really is somewhat woke in his past for whatever reason, or maybe dabbled in some of those areas, or what not the CFR, but whatever. What's the global group that whatever? He's part of that global group in Davos. Those are concerns for me as well. I'm not sold on Morris either. Even though Trump and all these folks are pushing him.
So each one
he
of
needs
these
to sell himself to me and answer these questions.
Each one of these candidates, we could say that about.
Yeah.
Each one of these candidates.
That's right.
There's going to be things you like, things you don't like.
Yeah.
What it's going to come down to, I think, is going to be, or let me ask you, do you think it will be, there will be things in there that you don't like, but there's going to be other things you like more that weigh. And I think a lot of people are going to be in this weighing mode.
That's right.
Don't you, Bob Scott?
I agree 100%. And there's two that I really like. One that I don't like, as far as the three are concerned. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Very good. Good discussion. We're going to go live now back to Fancy Farm. We're going to hear, and this is Ashley Watts, who is the head of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and today's MC at the event. Let's go live to Fancy Farm.
Come back to us. Well, come back to us if you need to.
Okay. So we're going to fix that here so you can hear. And that's Ashley Watts there. She's the MC, the president of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And there was a little bit of grumbling, Bob Scott, about her being the MC of this event.
Yeah. Well, to their credit, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, we all know they tend to run a little bit left as far as their positions that they take.
But let me ask you this. That's a great point to and keep your thought. But we see that from the chamber, what we were just talking about. There are things, they've been big pushers of lowering the income tax on Kentuckians and right to work and a lot of these issues that have been important to conservatives.
I agree.
On the other hand, they've been supportive of Bashir and kind of the COVID lockdowns, defending their business community. Right. So here we see this dichotomy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They also helped to do a big part of the underwrite. That's the reason KET's there. They were the people that stepped in at the 11:59th hour to help underwrite KET because of the cuts in the federal funds, which I agreed to as far as Trump doing
which is needed.
Right, and that just shows right there that that's the way to do it, not taxpayers doing that, somebody interested. So I think we have our technical issue fixed there. We're going to go back now to the Fancy Farm Picnic. Nothing else like it, folks, in the whole entire nation of the United States. Let's go back to Fancy Farm.
Sounds like a winning presidential campaign to me. I'm sure Governor Bashir would have loved to have been here, but it was hard to squeeze this event in between going to Iowa and his Vogue cover shoot, which is too bad because I have an exciting announcement. At the Chamber, we hand out legislative MVP awards to members of the General Assembly, where they go to bat for Kentucky businesses. They get a beautifully engraved Louisville Slugger bat. But today, I'd like to introduce a brand new award for Governor Andy Bashir, the Gold Glove Award, for catching all the easy wins lobbed over by the Kentucky General Assembly the last 6 years. Congratulations, Governor Bashir. I'm happy to see that some of our constitutional officers joined us today. It is great to see our Attorney General here today. I thought Senator McConnell had just brought a Secret Service detail with him, but it turns out that intense man over there is just Russell Coleman. Mark Metcalf is here. He's our state treasurer. Okay. We're still not exactly sure what the state treasurer does, but we're glad he's doing it. Welcome, Mark. And I know I saw our agriculture commissioner, Jonathan Schell, somewhere. I almost didn't recognize him. If you follow Commissioner Schell on social media, you know he is usually shirtless, running some race. I know it's hot, Jonathan, but I'm asking you to keep your shirt on during the duration of this picnic. I am sad that a few of our elected officials couldn't make it today. Did you all notice Secretary of State Mike Adams isn't with us today? Of course you didn't. And I'm sad my fellow ladies, Auditor Allison Ball and Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman, weren't able to be with us. Both have been rumored to run for higher office. Allison may run out of offices to switch to before Congressman Rogers retires. And I heard Jacqueline and Rocky have a high-stakes game of horse to figure out who's going to run against Comer. So now, let's get to it. The main event. Let's give it up for the Republicans. Also, So let's make some noise for the guy running against Jamie Comer. My fellow Kentuckians, no noisemakers, no profanity, and please, if you are going to heckle, at least be clever. So far, you have only been slightly better behaved than what I'm used to at home with my children. At the end of the day, though, let's remember, we are all Kentuckians. We root for different teams, but we sit at the same table. All right, enough for me, because I'm afraid if I say much more, I'm not sure I'll be able to keep my day job when all this is over. So let's hear from the folks who came here to really sweat, your elected officials and candidates. Our first speaker is Representative Kim Holloway. Kim Holloway is the Republican member of the Kentucky House representing the 2nd District. She's a small business owner and member of the Christian Church of Christ. Welcome, Representative Holloway.
Welcome to the 145th Annual Fancy Farm Picnic, everyone. It is my pleasure to be standing before you this afternoon representing the 2nd District in our General Assembly. I hope everyone has enjoyed taking part in this historic tradition thus far. We look forward to this event every year and are thankful that so many descend upon our end of the state to support the efforts of St. Jerome's Church. I want to extend my congratulations to Miss Ashley Watts, the first female to ever MC at Fancy Farm. I also want to thank the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce for their unwavering support of big business and corporate handouts, which resulted in me setting a record as the lowest scoring Republican ever on their legislative scorecard. I believe the consolation prize is not getting a campaign donation next year. I also want to thank KET for accepting their bribe to quit their whining and head on down here to televise this event. I'm not sure how much it took, but it probably would have saved the chamber a ton of money had it just rented a Prius so KET could drive down here with both of its viewers in the back seat. I've been reading in the news this week that Fancy Farm is losing its relevance, and several of our elected officials weren't going to come down this year. I believe I speak accurately for most or all of Grace County that our area and our people are relevant and still a part of the Commonwealth even in non-election years. One declined, and I won't mention their name because you probably wouldn't know who it was anyway, but they believe that the stage is reserved for candidates who were on the ballot that year. But I believe the picnic is for anyone who values the contributions of our area to Kentucky and is happy to experience the culture and tradition of those of us who live outside of that golden triangle. Western Kentucky stands to say we are here, we have voices and strengths and assets, and we want to be remembered in all public policy decisions and considered in every economic development initiative. Thank you to each of the public servants and candidates who took the time to spend today with us. Your effort has been duly noted and is appreciated, and we will remember it at election time. Next year is an historic election year for Kentuckians. After 137 years, Senator Mitch McConnell has announced that he's retiring. He is filibustering life no more. The man who made standing still a legislative strategy is finally standing down. Senator, we thank you for your service. On the stage behind me are 3 of the 7 Republican candidates who would like to fill his shell. I encourage everyone to take the time to familiarize themselves with each of the candidates and make a well-informed and unbiased voting decision. If history repeats itself, we will keep voting for him until I'm 87 without really knowing why. I have genuinely enjoyed the first 7 months of my first term and truly believe that I have lived up to my promise to provide meaningful representation to my community. A legislator's job doesn't end on the last day of session if they're doing it right. I had to make some tough decisions this session, but it is easy to return a phone call or an email. It is not only easy to sit and have coffee with a constituent who has reached out to share a concern or idea or ask for help, but it is enjoyable. I'm honored that my community took a risk and elected an absolute nobody who just wants to do her part to make life a little easier for everyone in what is a very volatile land.
See, folks, they play the music there when you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't let you, like, there's no filibustering here. And so Jim Waters back in the studio here. You're watching Fancy Farm Live here on Kentucky's Voice. I'm joined by Bob Scott and Tom Fallbush here in the studio. Bob, we just heard Representative Kim Holloway there, Kim Holloway there, and Kim Holloway, there, and just wanted to get your reaction.
She was lighting some fires.
She took it to McConnell.
I got to tell you
goodness.
that I wasn't necessarily. Of course, that's what Fancy Farm's all about.
That's right.
But here's a Republican taking a shot at Senator Mitch McConnell sitting there.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's the beneficiary in some ways of the work he's done here in building a Republican voter
But you know what?
registration.
I agree, but we're moving on. And it's the new generation of Republicans.
That's right.
That are coming up right now. So,
and she's won. She defeated an incumbent Republican, Richard Heath in Western Kentucky.
Yeah,
so she has a sense.
And I like Richard Heath.
Yeah,
I think
she has a sense of what's happening in that district.
That's right. Yeah, but she's impressive.
And today, she's speaking to her district. That's what she cares about, obviously, right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and some pretty tough comments, Tom Fallbush.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's, what's interesting is to actually see McConnell sitting behind her. That's just what theater, what political theater, actually.
That's awesome. The way that works, though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's just so unique. I don't think you see this anywhere else in the country where, people can take shots at somebody like that. But, it's where we're at. And that, like I said, his legacy is on trial today. And it's fitting that he is there to witness the trial. So.
It'll be interesting to see if any of the candidates say much positive about him today.
That's
and
right.
What that, and who's willing to do that.
And let me say this I will say a couple of things positive about Mitch McConnell. We wouldn't have had Roe v. Wade overturned if it wasn't for Mitch McConnell. Wouldn't for his parliamentarian, skill. We would not have had the Supreme Court justices in place to overturn Roe v. Wade. Yes. Hats off to that man. You can't. You may dislike his anti-MAGA credentials right now, but he did help. He overturned Roe v. Wade.
Right. We're going
single-handedly in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and also of course in Kentucky, this was a Democrat state when he took office.
That's exactly
no
right.
longer the
but
case.
so was the rest of the South too.
And
so you can't give him too much credit.
But he ran this state's politics for the last 40 years.
Yes.
And he's been the voice against Bashir a lot of times too. When we needed somebody with that kind of voice.
But his anti-Trump position, his TDS that he has,
he's going to make the case though. He's going to make the case.
It's bitter and
he's going to make the case. He's been a supporter of Trump. Okay, we're getting ready to go back to Fancy Farm Live here on Kentucky's Voice, 502-571-0970. What do you think about Representative Kim Holloway's speech about McConnell? We're off. The fireworks have begun at Fancy Farm, and we're headed back out there now on Kentucky's Voice.
Farm picnic. Thanks to Father Venters, Stephen Elder, and everyone that made this event such a success. And I guess I really need to appreciate more than anything else, thank you for not giving the MC enough time to recognize the legislative leaders. If I could offer a little constructive feedback, though, I've noticed that the lineup over here is a little thin, and I think I can help you out with that if you'd allow me to. I know that I could help you get Governor Bashir here next year. See, I've watched this work all over the state. Next year, you contact the governor's office, and you tell them that you have a big, shiny, really big, a big, shiny check.
Thank you, Senator Howell. It's now my honor to introduce Senator Mitch McConnell, who is Kentucky's longest-serving U.S. Senator. Elected 9 times to lead the Republican conference, he is also the longest-serving Senate party leader in American history. Welcome, Senator McConnell.
Well,
Well, this is my 30th fancy farm, and I can't think of anybody. I can't think of any place I'd rather be on the first Saturday in August than right here. Back in the old days, there were only a couple of Republicans here, me and a county chairman. How things have changed. This is what it looks like to have two Republican supermajorities in Frankfort. And how about Ashley Watts, our first woman chair? It's no wonder everybody's so excited this time around. For 4 years, it was like the Biden administration was waging war on family farm itself. Democrats' runaway inflation sent the price of pork through the roof. The Biden DOJ went undercover to intimidate Catholics. And crazy climate change rules made a tough job tougher for all of the Graves County farmers. But St. Jerome's outlasted Democrats' control of Washington, and I'll outlast a church-closing governor. This year, there's plenty of reasons to count your lucky stars that America voted like Kentucky did last year and brought back President Trump and a Republican Congress. So think about it. You fired the Democrats who created the worst border crisis in history, who thought we'd just get used to record-high illegal crossings and unchecked fentanyl. You hired Republicans who actually believe in the rule of law. And what happened? Border crossings are at an all-time low. You told the Democrats who went on a reckless taxing and spending spree to get lost, and you hired Republicans to deliver one big, beautiful bill, which made the tax cuts permanent for Americans and small businesses. You said enough with Joe Biden's weakness on the world stage. Enough with embarrassments like his retreat from Afghanistan. Enough with second-guessing allies like Israel. And you hired Republicans to stand up to our enemies, stand with our friends. You hired a president to restore peace through strength. Joe Biden was afraid of Vladimir Putin. He let an old KGB thug literally get in his head. But President Trump knows who the bad guys are. Russia, North Korea, China, and Iran. Joe Biden was afraid of Iran when their terrorists attacked our troops and our allies. He simply put up with it. But President Trump got no time for that. He turned Iran's nuclear program into a pile of rocks. I saw the president last week at the White House. We talked about his decision to bomb Iran and to keep helping Ukraine fight Putin. I told him he made the right call. This is how you restore peace through strength. America is stronger and safer with Republicans in charge in Washington. Republicans like your great Congressman, Jamie Comer. If you think America deserves answers and accountability for Joe Biden's nonsense, I've got good news. Chairman Comer and the Oversight Committee are getting to the bottom of it all. That's right. You didn't get just elect a president tough enough to fight a Democratic Congress. You elected a Republican Congress to actually work with it. Over the years, I've led Republican majorities and delivered all kinds of wins for Kentucky and for our country, investing in Fort Campbell, keeping Paducah at the center of our national security, helping Mayfield bounce back from those deadly tornadoes, fighting back against the war on coal, and helping President Trump set records and change the Supreme Court for a generation. But none of it is possible without Republicans at the wheel. That's why my top goal last year was to make sure our president had a Republican Senate from day one. Well, boy, did we get it done. And Republicans will do it again and again and again. Thank you.
And there it is, Mitch McConnell's last speech at Fancy Farm. And the chanting you were hearing during that was a group of leftist, Democrat, whatever you want to call them, chanting "Cease fire now," making protests regarding the Israel-Hamas Gaza conflict. That's right. A bunch of leftists drove over here. The few of them that are here, they drove here and they decided to shout down Mitch McConnell, not over some policy to do with what's happening back home that maybe you could take some issue with, and I could understand. Instead, they decided to devote the entire time to shouting him down over foreign conflicts. But to their point, Mitch McConnell did spend much of the time defending his beliefs when it comes to what we are doing overseas and involved in those conflicts. He's been in office quite a long time. I mean, I have a general rule when...
Okay. I am now going to introduce John Drew Williams. Drew is the Democratic candidate for the 1st Congressional District. He is a lifelong Marshall County resident and a small business owner. Welcome.
Hello, Fancy Farm. My name is John Andrew Williams, but you can call me Drew. I want to be your next U.S. House Representative here in District 1. I am born and raised Western Kentucky. I am a family man with a family business that I've been working in since I was 14 years old. I graduated from Murray State University with a degree in history, and most importantly, I am a lifelong community servant. I am here for you. When the ice storm hit, I helped pull trucks out of ditches. When the tornadoes tore through our towns, I grabbed a chainsaw. And when floodwaters rose, I packed sandbags. When people opened their doors, I show up to fellowship, just like I showed up to St. Jerome Catholic Church last week. I am here for you. I will always work to represent your voice, our voice. We can build a new table that invites all of our people back together, to meet them where they are, to hear their stories, and reconnect our community to its roots. And we have to build this new table, because James Comer doesn't give us a seat at his table. He benefits when small farms and communities fail. He raised $7.8 million last year for his campaign, with only 8% of it in the state and 5% of it from you, from our district. You don't have a seat at his table. Special interests do. Corporations, organizations, party leaders, and lobbyists do. Comer has been in political office for almost 18 years. That's as long as I've been working construction, working out with my hands, working in the elements to make an honest living. While he hasn't had a public town hall since 2019, I've been revitalizing Taylor Day in Marshall County, Kentucky for the last 6 years. I've been building up community from the ground level. I've been listening to the people's needs without political power. I even helped serve at Fancy Farm Picnic today. Where is Comer putting in service to this community? I don't see you unless it's to benefit you. He's not like us. Western Kentuckians don't like big money politics or career politicians or people who had to move to gated communities in Frankfort so far away they had to redraw the district. They had to redraw the map so he could live here. And I want to thank Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr today. Y'all bust in your supporters from Lexington and Louisville to help James Comer, because he doesn't know hardly any people here in Western Kentucky. He just peddles rhetoric and hopes that you don't catch on. I'm here to build a new message of hope, and that the people of Western Kentucky have a seat at my table, because I am Western Kentucky. I've been building things here that last. I've been doing construction on the lakes, building docks. If you've been out there, you've seen and appreciated my work. And I've witnessed so many prized sunsets across those waters for decades that has a profound impact on my soul. My farmer and laborer friends out there will attest to that on their own fields and job sites. You know what it's like to be witnessing God's paradise, but you also know what it's like to sweat and toil and be short of breath and have to go home and raise a family as the prices go up and services get cut and our communities feel barren and disconnected. I am here for you. I have been here for you. I've been working in your communities, fighting for your liberties, and uplifting your spaces and your voices my entire life. Heck, I was Abraham Lincoln in my 4th grade play. I was president-elect in my AP government exam. Okay, sure, yeah. All these young people, I did it. And I've had part of more local community organizations over my lifetime than I can count. I got a history degree from Murray State University. Like, where else would you want me to get my education than right here? I think I am ready for the task of representing you, because I am you. Why not send a real working-class neighbor and community servant to Congress to represent you and uphold the Constitution of we the people? We have to come back to the table. We have to make a difference together. We have to quit falling for the words of millionaire politicians of any party as they work to serve their donors and special interests. It's united we stand, divided we fall, y'all, and it's time that we unite and take care of each other in a way that has never been done before. Those are the top benefit when you stay suffering and angry. But I will fight to end the dark money efforts, to ban political lobbying, to build back our rural town main streets, to empower the working class, to secure the economy for local mom and pop shops, and to remove the predatory practices that keep us from the American dream. We have to incentivize personal responsibility and work ethic while making sure that no one falls through the cracks and no one gets taken advantage of or forgotten here in our community. My faith in the teachings of Jesus Christ commands me to lift up all voices and to do good unto others regardless of how they behave or what they believe. We cannot keep praising his name but crucifying his values. We must treat our neighbors as ourselves, to show mercy before judgment, to be understanding and to forgive, to serve and to listen before we speak and act. I do not and will not judge you for having a difference of opinion, because that's what makes this country great. I am here for you. All I ask is that we come back to the table and work with dignity to figure out the answers to these issues that we care about. I want to host debates, town halls, perform courthouse surveys and expert roundtables to get a true idea of where our community stands, because I am here for you. When elected, I will vote based on that community-gathered data, not my own opinion, pushing your voice forward while repeating that I am here for my community first and foremost. You deserve to trust your government. Here is your opportunity.
All right, so that's you hear from. Democrats are pretty scarce down there. Dr. Lance Pearson, who joins us once again here, along with myself and Tom Fallbush here in the studio, as you're watching live coverage of 2025 edition of Fancy Farm Picnic. And that's the kind of Democratic message we used to hear a lot more from Democrats.
That's right. I think Andy Beshear and like maybe James Tallarico in Texas, they kind of try to meld this. We're compassionate Christians, and therefore you should vote for us.
And he's running for the first district, so he has very little opportunity. No people really expect him to defeat a guy like Jamie Comer. But still, hey, we give him credit for showing up. Tom
credit
Fallbush,
for showing up.
And what you saw there, folks, with him. And earlier, we're going to talk a lot about Senator McConnell's speech, but I wanted to point out that you really see that's what really Fancy Farm is about. People interrupting but on to Senator McConnell, Tom Fallbush, he did what we expected, I think, in some cases, which is defend his legacy. But he talked a lot about foreign policy and some things we might not have expected so much.
Oddly enough, he was really he was complimenting Donald Trump, but I think it's because he sees Trump starting to become more of an interventionist and basically push help basically making sure America's strength is seen around the world, and that's McConnell comes from that era of interventionalism. America first, peace and strength.
In America.
Here's Comer.
Jerome Comer to this picnic every year, and it's good to see so many of my friends here at the picnic. My farmer friends, my conservative friends, my U.S. Senate candidate friends, our great constitutional officers, Jonathan Schell, Russell Coleman, and Mark Metcalf. my state legislative friends, and yes, even my friends in the media. You know, it's tough. It's tough being a reporter for a liberal media outlet these days. The press has kind of taken it on the chin the last 10 years. I mean, let's face it, you guys were wrong about the origin of COVID's being in a lab in Wuhan, China. Wrong about the need to wear masks and get vaccinated during COVID. Wrong about the entire Russian collusion hoax. Wrong about Joe Biden's family taking tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments. And wrong about Joe Biden being mentally fit to be president of the United States. But now, you guys are on your newest false narrative, and that is that Andy Beshear is popular in rural areas. Now, some of you are even writing that Andy Beshear can help deliver rural America for Democrats in 2028. Well, y'all obviously didn't grow up in rural Kentucky, and you definitely don't know anyone in rural Kentucky. We folks in rural towns, we have a thing that many reporters and most Democrats have never heard of. And that's a thing called common sense. Here are 6 examples of common sense. Number 1, it's necessary to secure our borders so bad illegals don't enter into our country. Number 2, it's necessary to fund our great men and women of law enforcement so that they can successfully battle crime. Number 3, boys do not have any business playing girls' sports. And along those same lines, boys cannot get pregnant. I'm sorry. They really can't. 5, lower taxes are better than higher taxes. And 6, and this is a big one, if a man is able-bodied, then he should have to go to work like the rest of us. Those are examples of common sense. People in small towns like Fancy Farm have common sense, and that's why they vote Republican. Now, as chairman of the powerful House Oversight Committee that leads all major congressional investigations, I like to use something else that the liberal media apparently has no comprehension of, and that is a thing called evidence. So I brought a little evidence from right here in West Kentucky to relay to my friends in the media. Just down the road here, we have 4 Mississippi River counties. Those counties are Fulton, Hickman, Carlisle, and Ballard counties. They're wonderful counties that I am blessed to represent. And you won't find any more rural counties than those 4 river counties. In the last 2 governor's elections, those counties were majority registered Democrat counties. Yet in Andy Beshear's last 2 governor races, he only got 33% of the vote in those counties where over 50% of the registered voters were Democrats. Now, my friends in the media, if you can't even get half the Democrats to vote for you against Matt Bevin, then good luck against J.D. Vance, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. Next year is a very important election year. We must keep Senator Mitch McConnell's seat in the Republican hands. And speaking of our senior senator, I want to publicly thank him for always coming to Fancy Farm and for being a great friend to West Kentucky. But more than anything, as the one guy in Congress who has fought the deep state and won, I want to thank Senator McConnell for keeping Merrick Garland from being on the Supreme Court. Thank you, sir. My opponent next year is here, and I honestly don't know his name, but he is sitting up here all alone. We know Andy Beshear won't endorse him because Andy Beshear's failed Kentucky Democrat Party only helps Andy Beshear and nobody else. And I'm pretty confident that no national Democrat leaders will come campaign for him. So to show my good sportsmanship, I brought my opponent something from Washington, D.C. It's an endorsement from Joe Biden. Right here. Signed by the auto pen. In closing, we have an opportunity with President Trump. We've secured the border. We've stopped China from taking our jobs. Let's take it to the next level. Let's work together. Let's keep America great again, and let's elect Republicans. Thank you, Fancy Farm.
That's excellent prop. That's
by
awesome.
far the best prop there, guys. We're back here
awesome.
in the studio, but Dr. Lance Pearson, Jamie Comer did what we expected. He's running for governor. That is pretty clear today.
I think that is clear, and we expect his race. He's probably going to win by about 50 points in that race.
In his congressional race.
You could see the confidence.
What a great prop. To get an endorsement from Joe Biden for his opponent. who probably, no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, Western Kentucky, you're not supportive at all of Joe Biden.
Right.
So that's a great point.
Using the auto pen, yeah.
Well, we're hearing. I think that was a really good beginning. I think Jamie Comer is off to a good start.
No, I think he is. I think he hit on the message that works in Kentucky that Trump has really capitalized. You want to be social conservative, and you saw the raucous applause that talking about boys and girls sports got, and you want to be economically populist. You want to care about the working man, and you don't want people on the public dole just because they're lazy,
and
basically.
He went back and criticized. He took some shots at Bashir for the COVID, the way he handled COVID.
That's right.
Also said there's the press. He took on the media today. He really made some strong statements about the media and how they've coddled Bashir in these rural areas and tried to claim he's popular.
That's right. Yeah, the fact claiming that Bashir's going to help in the rural South of rural America, and you can't get 50% of the Democrats in these rural Kentucky counties to vote for Bashir. So I think it's a false hope that the National Democratic Party has in Bashir.
And so what we're seeing here is the beginnings of a gubernatorial race, and the last time I think Representative Comer now, who by the way, as the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, he has been in the right place in terms of the Trump administration, happened in terms of calling Biden and those folks on the carpet. He's done a great job of that. He's been very persistent about this. And so now let's go back to Fancy Farm here
Daniel
with
Cameron.
Daniel Cameron, who's running for the U.S. Senate.
Daniel is the CEO of the 1792 Exchange and previously served as Kentucky's 51st Attorney General. Welcome, Daniel Cameron.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and hello, Fancy Farm. I am always proud to spend time with so many hard-working West Kentucky patriots. Ashley, I want to thank you and the Chamber for making sure KAT is here. Who could have known that in a span of just a few short years, KAT would go from covering bailouts to actually getting one? Look, KAT showing up here is more than can be said for the Democrats. There aren't even enough of them to run Joe Biden's auto pen. But look, I understand why they aren't here. They're out searching for a national identity, which is going to be hard to find when they're afraid of being misgendered. You know, it was an honor to stand on this stage last year as President Trump's surrogate to Fancy Farm. This year, I am proud to be here as a candidate for the United States Senate. I'm running to ensure that Graves County and the rest of our Commonwealth has a voice in Washington, a voice that respects the men, women, and children of all 120 counties, a voice that will stand up for your constitutional rights, and a voice that will support President Trump's America First agenda. President Trump's second term has been a victory for common sense and a loss for auto pens and incompetence. From removing violent illegals to ensuring we're not being taken advantage of in trade deals, this president is working for the American people. And now he needs reinforcements in the Senate. In this primary, the people of Kentucky will have to decide between talk and action. For instance, Andy Barr wants you to think he's America First, but it's hard to believe him when he's voted with Nancy Pelosi 1,200 times. And Nate Morris wants you to think he's tough, but when he was asked about his donation in the primary to Nikki Haley over Donald Trump, rather than own up to it, his first thought was to throw his wife under the bus. He said, and I quote, "I got stuck with the bill for a dinner my wife attended." Nate, that's not tough. That's a night in the doghouse. Nate will do anything and say anything to run away from his past. He talks tough about deporting illegals, but the only thing he's ever sent across the border has been his company. You can't stand up for American workers when the only experience you've had with them is firing them. You can't claim to be MAGA when you build a company on ESG subsidies and DEI initiatives. And you can't claim to be opposed to woke ideology when you spent 2020 embracing the same protesters that were on my front lawn. Now, some would say his campaign reminds him of a fart. It stinks, it's unproductive, and it's a sign that the emitter is full of crap. Talk is cheap. We have to be judged by our actions, and I'm happy to put my record up against these two gentlemen any day. As your Attorney General, I stood up to the Biden administration when they tried to destroy our coal industry. I stood up to Andy Beshear when he tried to shut down our churches. I stood up for our kids when he tried to protect them from radical gender ideology. And I stood up to the mob when they tried to bully me into making a decision that was contrary to the laws of our state. And as I think about this race, I think about our boys. Mackenzie and I want them to grow up in a colorblind society, one based on merit and opportunity, not division and handouts. We don't need America built on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need America built on merit, excellence, and intelligence. We want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that is free from fentanyl. Nothing made me prouder as AG than helping bring in nearly $900 million to the state to fight the drug epidemic. That's why I want to work with President Trump to finish the wall and to secure our southern border. We want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that honors and supports our law enforcement community. That's why I'm proud to have the endorsements of over 50 law enforcement officials, because they know I will always back the blue. And we want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that preserves our rich heritage in coal and natural gas. That's why I'll be a relentless voice for energy independence. Finally, let me address the 800-pound elephant in the room. As I travel the state, I'm often asked, who will help you make decisions when you're a senator? Let me say this as clearly as I can. This seat doesn't belong to any politician. It belongs to you, the people of Kentucky. As I told Joe Biden when I spoke on behalf of President Trump at the 2020 RNC convention, my mind is my own. I'll be a senator focused on the future, not the past, focused on supporting President Trump's America First agenda and delivering for this Commonwealth, and focused on lifting people up rather than tearing them down. I will be guided by you, the people. May God bless you and God bless the Commonwealth. Thank you.
And there is Cameron's Fancy Farm speech. A lot easier than when he was dealing with the Breonna Taylor chants. Andy Barr is up next.
Andy Barr currently represents Kentucky's 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Welcome, Congressman Barr.
Hello, Fancy Farm! I'm Andy Barr, and I'm running for Senate to continue my work with President Trump to make America great again. I'm a proud husband, busy father of Eleanor, Mary Clay, and Hale, an 8th-generation Kentuckian, grandson of 2 World War II veterans, and an America First fighter who has never wavered in the fight for limited government, free enterprise, and a strong national defense. After defending small businesses in the private sector, I flipped a seat in Congress, fought Obama's war on coal, and opposed big government wherever I found it. I led the fight in court during Trump's first term, defending his authority to build the wall. I authored major parts of bills that President Trump signed into law to roll back destructive regulations on the economy. The very first veto of Biden's failed presidency was his veto of my legislation, a bill that took on the woke environmentalists and protected Americans' retirement from radical ESG mandates. I serve proudly as chairman of President Trump's 2024 primary election in Kentucky, and I'm working arm in arm with him right now to get his America First agenda passed in the House. Now, some politicians like to say I'm a Trump guy. They talk about supporting the president, but I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually doing it day in and day out in Congress. My opponents like to talk about the one big beautiful bill. I wrote it and helped to pass it. Think about it. In less than 8 months, President Trump and I have worked together to close the border, deport illegal aliens, obliterate Iran's nuclear program, restore peace through strength, make permanent Trump's tax cuts, eliminate taxes on tips and overtime, and revive American energy dominance through Kentucky coal. In the United States Senate, I'll continue to be the president's #1 ally. Now, I know our governor would hate to hear that. Too bad Andy Beshear couldn't be here today. I guess he couldn't find the time between Vogue magazine photo shoots and measuring Oval Office drapes. Of course, the liberal media is fawning all over him, but Americans will soon learn what we Kentuckians already know. He's as liberal as he is boring. You know, I'd say anyone could beat this guy, but I wouldn't want to offend Daniel Cameron. Good to see you, Daniel. I think we're going to keep the tradition alive of Andy's beating Daniels. As Kentuckians, we're all profoundly grateful to people who take it upon themselves to right the wrongs of woke liberals, like the guy who had to reverse radical environmental commitments, eliminate racial DEI policies, and correct a bunch of bad decisions that led to financial ruin. No, I'm not just talking about President Trump cleaning up Joe Biden's mess. I'm talking about the guy who had to follow Nate Morris as CEO after he ran his green fantasy Rubicon into the ground and was pushed out of his own company. You know, Nate calls himself the trash man, but dumpster fire is more like it. We all know President Trump is on a winning streak and the left is losing big. Recently, the only people who have lost more than congressional Democrats, illegal immigrants, and the tyrants in Iran are Rubicon investors. Of course, we've all heard Nate profess his newfound loyalty to President Trump. He said the same about his mentor, Mitch McConnell, and we see how that worked out. President Trump better watch his back. You know, Nate Morris was so moved by President Trump, he donated thousands of dollars to Nikki Haley. Nate was so incensed when Kamala's senior political advisor said Trump must be destroyed thoroughly that Nate put him on his board. Nate was so opposed to Black Lives Matter, he praised the actions of the rioters and called for all of us to support them. Nate hated DEI so much that, listen to this, he sent his employees to bias training classes to lose their so-called white privilege. You know, I'm sensing a pattern with this guy. Out here in West Kentucky, we have a name for someone who opposed President Trump, supported BLM, and pushed DEI. A Democrat. But we ought to let up a little. It's been a tough couple of years for Nate. His company collapsed. Nikki Haley lost the primary. Brooks Brothers stopped making his favorite COVID mask. And now Trump is phasing out the penny. How in the world is anyone going to be able to buy Rubicon stock? all kidding aside, thank you to St. Jerome's Church for hosting this incredible event and for providing us an opportunity to make our pitch and have a little fun. Know in me, West Kentucky will always have a friend, from supporting our brave men and women at Fort Campbell, cheering on Murray State in the College World Series, defending our coal miners in Union and Hopkins counties, to supporting nuclear-powered AI data centers in Paducah. West Kentucky will have no better friend this side of Jamie Comer when it comes to supporting West Kentucky in the United States Senate. The Purchase region epitomizes so much of what makes Kentucky special: community, faith, and great food. It's an honor to be with you today. God bless you all. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman Barr. We are now going to have Nate Morris join us. Nate is the founder of Rubicon, a waste and recycling company operating in all 50 states and 20 countries. He is also the founder and chairman of Morris Industries and the chairman of Republic Financial. Welcome, Nate.
All right. I am so glad to see that Mitch McConnell bothered to show up today. But you know, I'm really confused. I thought this was Fancy Farm. I didn't realize this was Bring Your Boys to Work Day. It's great to be with you all. My name is Nate Morris, and I'm a trash man. You know, a lot of people thought I wouldn't show up today, but I would never miss an opportunity to be right here in West Kentucky. I love this Commonwealth. My family's been here for 9 generations. We descended from Morgan County. And the 10th generation, my little man, JR, was born just a couple weeks ago. And just so, I want to thank the folks here at St. Jerome's for such a tremendous Kentucky tradition. When I launched my campaign for the United States Senate, I led with 3 things that I want everyone to remember me by. Number 1, I'm an America First conservative who supports Donald Trump 100% of the time. I'm an entrepreneur who built a trash company right here in Kentucky and took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. And number 3, I'm going to trash Mitch McConnell's legacy. It's funny, you know, the third one is pissing off a lot of people, but I have a serious question. Who here can honestly tell me that it's a good thing to have a senior citizen who freezes on national television during his press conferences as our U.S. Senator? It seems to me, maybe, just maybe, Mitch's time to leave the Senate was a long time ago. I mean, for goodness sakes, a lot of us here at this picnic talked a lot of smack about Joe Biden and how old he was and how out of touch he was with the American people. So why is it that you all get so defensive when I talk about a man who's older than Biden, just as mentally compromised, and holds the same positions on Biden on amnesty, Ukraine funding, and his hatred for Trump? Here's another one that gets me. Take immigration, for example. I said we ought to deport all the 20 million illegal immigrants Joe Biden let invade our country. And Andy Barr, he got really upset. He calls me a nativist. He said we need legal immigrants to stay here so they can work jobs for lower wages, taking opportunity away from American workers. You know, I think deporting people who broke our laws is only common sense. But I guess that's controversial to a guy who funded Congress's latest attempt at mass amnesty. I shouldn't be surprised, though. Andy Barr is a fully owned subsidiary of Mitch McConnell, who worked with Democrats to try and pass amnesty, which is an important lesson for anyone voting in this Republican primary. For the first time since I was born, we have a chance to replace Mitch McConnell here in the Commonwealth with someone who's going to support our president in a state he won by 30 points instead of sabotaging him every chance they get. But just because Mitch McConnell's name is not on the ballot doesn't mean his legacy is not on the line. Which brings me to the McConnell boys. If you want to know how Andy Barr or Daniel Cameron are going to act in the U.S. Senate, look no further than their mentor, Mitch McConnell. Both of these guys are very proud to tell you they wouldn't have careers if it weren't for Mitch. Neither of these guys have built anything, done anything impactful, employed anyone, but boy, did they know how to take direction from a decrepit old mob boss. I mean, where would you be without Mitch McConnell? Andy and Daniel, you know, today might be the perfect day to break some real news here. Perhaps you could both show us the seat of your britches so we can finally understand where Mitch McConnell's hand goes. Daniel, I gotta be honest. It's really good to see you doing what you do so well, sitting on the bench and watching the action play out. A few years ago, right here on this stage, Daniel joked that Mitch McConnell was his wife's grandfather. Well, I've got some breaking news for you all. I just received the DNA results, and it turns out Mitch McConnell is not your wife's grandfather. But in fact, Mitch McConnell, Daniel, is your daddy. I don't know if you saw, but President Trump recently commented about what an absolutely stupid, brainless idea cashless bail is. Don't worry, though, Daniel. I'm sure he'll forget all about it, just like you shielded for cashless bail for years. And I'm sure he's going to forget you told the press you couldn't think of a single thing you disagreed with Mitch McConnell. And I'm sure he's going to forget you managed to choke like a dog and lose the general election to Andy Beshear in our Commonwealth in a state that Trump won by 30 points. And then we have Andy Barr. To sum up the internal battle for Andy Barr, I would say this. We need to keep an eye on what disappears first, Andy's support for Mitch or his hairline. I'm just kidding. Actually, what's disappearing faster is his chance of ever becoming a United States Senator. I like to rag on Andy, but I got to give him some credit. He did something very, very smart, setting up his bank account in Kiev, and his campaign treasurer is Vladimir Zelensky. I know, but that's why Mitch McConnell keeps sending him checks. God bless you, and God bless Kentucky.
Here in the studio. Now, this is Fancy Farm, folks. I don't even need to tell you that. You could just tune in. You would know.
That's just good drama. That's just good television.
But I want to hear from you. 502-571-0970 on your Kentucky's Voice text line. What did you think about those comments? We heard from all three candidates, the three major candidates, and we've heard from, actually, Michael Ferris as well, but we've heard from four candidates running for U.S. Senate today, three on the stage on the platform. And I'm here in the studio with Tom Fallbush and Dr. Lance Pearson. And you can hear all of us at different times on Kentucky's Voice as hosts. But let's get right to this. And Dr. Pearson, what did you think there about Nate Morris? Now, you know, this was his chance to. Here's what I want to say, too, about Fancy Farm and something that needs to be said about these barbs. Even if a guy doesn't bring a big group with him, and it doesn't sound like Nate Morris had a lot of folks there today from the crowd, but these things get picked off, you know, as clips on social media. So you won't necessarily know how big the crowd was. These are made for getting their message out. Did he do that?
He certainly got out that he's not in support of Mitch McConnell. We know that he doesn't like Mitch McConnell. Beyond that, I'm not sure what his policy positions are. There wasn't really any talk of that. And really, that's his criticism of both Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron is he's trying to associate them with Mitch McConnell, but not even on a policy basis. It's just like implications that Mitch McConnell somehow controls them.
And since you're going to be leaving here after the segment, I want to also get your take on Andy Barr's speech. I thought Andy Barr did a pretty good job today of not only saying he was for Trump's policies, but mentioning specific things he had voted for and supported.
Yeah, I thought both Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr made very good presentations. And Andy Barr really played to his strength. He is a congressman. Right. He has voted on a lot of these policies, so he does have that track record, and he tried to emphasize that.
And his line about another Andy beating Danny was maybe one of the better barbs we've heard, Tom Falbish.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to take, there's two ways to look at this. Who has the better policy positions, et cetera, but who actually gave the best speech today is what I'm thinking about right now. And just from a tone perspective, I think Barr probably had the right tone. He kind of hit the right note, in the room.
You're talking about the tone of the speech.
That's right. The fancy farm's a delicate thing. You want to throw out the barbs, but you don't want to come off as mean-spirited and try, a bit of what, listen, Nate was bringing it.
Came off kind of.
He was kind of mean, and which is, maybe that's appropriate in some settings, but, it may not hit the right note for the spirit of fancy farm.
And on this, I know we got to go to break here pretty soon, but if Donald Trump was watching this today now, because I know they're playing for his, how would he, Dr. Pearson, how would he see Nate Morris's speech? It's courageous in a way.
It was
to be able to take on, but go ahead.
I think that's true. I think this would really appeal to Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
There is a difference there.
That's their style.
And there have been cases where Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump don't necessarily see candidates the same way. So we'll see that. But it was I felt it was somewhat abrasive and very attack oriented.
Very red
and
meat.
So there is some red meat.
Right.
Exactly.
You're right, Tom Falbish. It's a delicate thing to be able to pull off the humor, but also land the barbs. I mean, it's a tough job.
It's
tough.
Most
people
and you can tell Nate is not a professional politician.
That's right.
But you know what? Barr is, and I could see that, and that's also a negative in a lot of ways because I can see that he's very quick, very polished, and I love Cameron, but the energy wasn't there. He's a very stoic, gentleman. He's very polished, and but sometimes the energy level doesn't excite me about.
I don't think being polished in and of itself is a bad thing.
Right.
I think if you're using it to cover up. Or people get the sense that you're.
Yeah, but communicate. People listen to when you're passionate about something. That's how you communicate in politics, is through passion. And I don't see the passion.
We saw it from Barr. We saw the passion. We saw the points. I mean, he landed some barbs. He did a good job. You're watching Kentucky's Voice on. You're watching Fancy Farm coverage of Fancy Farm coverage on Kentucky's Voice.
Kentucky's
here. Stay with us. We'll be back. Thank you.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. We'll return with more live coverage right after this. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
Glad to have you with us today as we cover Fancy Farm, the political event of the year in Kentucky, and it has not disappointed. I'm in the studio with Bob Scott and Tom Fallbush, and and then we have Andrew Cooperrider on the scene. Andrew, let me go to you first. What was the reaction to the comments that Nate Morris made, particularly about Daniel Cameron? What can you tell us about what happened there? And a lot of this stuff gets sent out in clips on social media, so people don't necessarily see the audience reaction. They just hear the barb. But what do you think is the response and will be the response to that?
Well, I can tell you today, yesterday, every time that Nate Morris has attacked McConnell, wrapped in McConnell, Cameron, McConnell Barr type conversation, the crowd itself hasn't really been feeling it. I mean, you do have to understand your history of Kentucky, of McConnell's Western Wall strategy, where they did come out to West Kentucky specifically to turn it into a Republican stronghold. And so locally, a lot of the Republican Party, a lot of the Republican elected people aren't going to take kindly to those comments. I can tell you that the feedback I was getting around me was, in general, that Nate Morris's speech was a little bit negative, a little bit darker, not as necessarily jovial. I think he's all week he's been having a voice issue. He recently had a child last couple of days, I think like within the last week.
Yeah.
And so I think that's affecting his voice.
Yeah.
So he just comes off grovelly, angry.
We just
Cameron over and over was hitting people pretty hard.
Right.
He himself, because of his tone of voice, the oohs and ahs, that was kind of an ugly joke.
Hey, Andrew,
wasn't per se as relevant.
Hey, Andrew, Barr's speech, I thought, was, as far as TV perception and coverage goes, probably was most well received, it seemed like, today. Andy Barr.
I don't know. I think on the ground, it's hard, right? Because when you're on the ground here, you see that there is a large amount of people wearing Barr shirts, holding Barr signs. But understand that Barr has won a lot of money. I mean, last night, he's rolling around with a U-Haul. He's rolling around with buses. I mean, he is spending some serious money. When you drive into these events, you're passing by 4x8 signs that have been erected within the past few days. He sends out a preteen. They knocked the route, literally the route you drive from the breakfast to here at Fancy Farm. They knocked it and then put up signs along the way of 4x8 signs asking homeowners in order to create the idea that he's very popular. So they've done a lot to curate that. So if I'm looking at everybody else that's not wearing a current party group person shirt, I would say the reaction was better to Cameron than Barr, personally. I think Barr spent a long time talking about policy without a lot of jokes, and it lost some people in the beginning.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew Cooper. Great job today. One line that Andy Barr had was that he's looking forward to another Andy beating Danny again in the next election. But thank you, Andrew, Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, as we wrap this up today. I think it's what we expected. We heard Mitch McConnell trying to defend his legacy. We heard the Barr and Cameron kind of maybe splitting that vote. We heard Nate Morris come in as an outsider. It's pretty much what we expected.
Yeah, I was, at the end of this, I still don't think there's a front runner. I mean, we all came into this thinking that really Morris is probably the front runner because of the national support from the MAGA crowd. But after listening to this, I'm not getting a front runner feel, from anybody right now. And actually, it was a shame because Morris could have closed us. I mean, I think he could have came in and they really knocked it out of the park and closed the deal.
Opportunity,
and he hadn't done it yet. And so I don't know who I would vote for at this point. And because each of them had great points, I still have concerns about Morris. And but
Bob
anyway,
Scott.
No, I agree. I think it's still any man's race right now. It's going to be interesting to see over the next several months what happens. With regard, and Andrew was talking about the money that's been poured into certainly Barr's campaign and what he saw, on the way down there. I'll just say this, and I said it to you guys off camera. To me, the one that and it was a bit on the heavy side, the attack. I think that that basically Morris was the one that was, I would say, closer to being Trump.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, as far as the attack.
Yeah, exactly right.
I think the content, yes, but the tone, as we talked about earlier, remains to be seen. I think Barr's going to be a formidable opponent, guys.
Absolutely.
I think Daniel Cameron will be.
That's right.
And the fact is, you've seen all of this right here today on Kentucky's Voice. How exciting has this been? We've got just about 10 seconds left. And it is. Be sure to join us, by the way. We're going to have coverage. We're going to replay some of this coverage on Monday and Tuesday's Kentucky's Voice, which I think is great. And we'll get a chance to watch it again and do some more analysis, hopefully. Guys, it's been really great. This time has gone by tremendously fast.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
And thanks for joining us.
Appreciate y'all.
And stay with us here and be with us here on Kentucky's Voice.
Appreciate
Monday
your support.
through Friday, 11 o'clock each weekday. We hope you'll join us. God bless everyone. Have a great weekend.
And support Kentucky's Voice. Support it. Yeah.
Yes.
That wraps up our live coverage of the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, brought to you by Kentucky's Voice. To learn more, support our mission, or get involved in the fight for truth in the Commonwealth, visit kyvoice.org. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.